What's up, everybody? Welcome to GameFace episode 26 right here on Sifted Games. Want to apologize for the late start on the live stream, but today LA's traffic kicked our butts, something serious. I got here late. Matt actually got here early for you today.
Yeah, I made it through okay, but it was still bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. I got here late. Our TriCaster guy just got here in the nick of time, so we were right under the bell, but we do have the show ready to rock for you guys, and it is a good one. There are so many topics for us to talk about today.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. It's so many games coming out, so many topics to talk about. It's going to be a great show. So, first of all, there's a couple things we want to talk about that we don't have really room in the Big Six for. The first is the PlayStation 4 price drop. So we heard about the one in Japan, and that kind of brought the price of the Japanese unit down to the cost of the American unit. So we kind of assumed, well, it's not doing so well in Japan. Probably they're just bringing it to parity with the U.S. Oh, no. They dropped the price in America by $50. I can't believe it, Matt. I honestly cannot believe it.
I don't see why they would need to do that.
I've never seen a console in a leading position the way that console is drop the price. It's always the guy who's in second or third place that blinks first and drops the price. And I guess some people could say Xbox did drop its price, but not really.
They're leaving out Kinect. Yeah.
Right. I guess that, but you're leaving out something most people didn't want anyway,
right.
So.
It's more like dropping it to the price it should have been.
Right. And so, $50 price drop for the PlayStation 4, I mean, that's like putting the foot on the throat, basically.
Yeah, especially with the various bundles you'll see this holiday, and you'll get. Yeah, I don't know where you go from here. That makes if you're deciding between one or the other at this point, like, and you know, all things being equal, like that's a pretty good incentive.
I mean, it already kind of was a no-brainer because you can see where things are headed already with both of those machines. I mean, look, honestly, for Q4, Xbox One is a much better lineup than PlayStation 4, but if you pay attention to Japan and you look at like the games that are being announced there's no games being announced for Xbox One. It's always PlayStation 4, and maybe they toss in the Vita in there as well. So the writing's kind of on the wall as far as like 2 years from now, software-wise, PlayStation 4 is going to be probably the vastly superior platform to own. And now there's really no reason to not own one. It's I don't know. Microsoft is going to have to drop the price. I mean, they have to drop the price now. And again, this is good for everybody. Now, if you guys haven't bought an Xbox One, you'll probably be able to get one a little bit cheaper. If you haven't bought a PlayStation 4 yet, which I would be really surprised if anybody watching this show, particularly live, does not yet have a PlayStation 4, now's the time to leap. It's not a great Q4 lineup, but there's already enough games kind of in the PS4 backlog to keep you busy until the stuff really starts coming out.
They'll be there.
Oh, yeah, next year is going to be amazing for PlayStation.
And if you haven't played Uncharted, like 80% of the PS4 user base.
Well, that's what Naughty Dog says, but it could be. I mean, they got a lot of people.
I've heard some marketing research that bears that out.
I mean, they've got a lot of Xbox 360 people to come to PlayStation 4, so it is likely that 80% of the people who own PS4 never played it.
And remember, the Uncharted don't really burn the sales charts
up.
You know, like
they do well enough.
They do well, but they don't like. They're not a ubiquitous kind of game. So, like, I can see tons of people haven't played them. And if you haven't played an Uncharted game, you should really get that Uncharted collection this week.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, all 3 games in one. I mean, I wish I could have waited all this time to get those 3
I know.
games.
Get all that at once is crazy.
It is. You'll be playing until probably the end of the year trying to get through those games. So, no multiplayer in any of them, though, which is a little weird. But still, great campaigns for all 3 of those. The first one's looks a little threadbare at this point.
Yeah, but they brought it up a little bit, and I think they've kind of added a lot of the gameplay and aiming improvements from the other 2. They've incorporated that into
the graphical improvements are amazing, man. Like, there's some comparison videos up on Sifted you guys should watch. That the work that they've done on that remaster is probably one of the best remasters ever.
Especially for the first. I mean, the first one really did look pretty creaky on PlayStation 3 after 2 and 3.
For sure. Yeah.
But they've brought it up to par, I would say.
Looks great.
It doesn't have anything like as impressive as like the train sequence in 2 or the ocean liner sequence in 3, but like it can stand along those 2 and not look out of place.
For sure. And the other game we wanted to talk about before we jump into the Big Six is Rock Band 4. Now, I had really thought we might do like a really long conversation on this game, like on some episode of GameFace, but there's nothing to talk about, Matt.
No.
Have you played it at all? Have you been fiddling around with it or anything?
No, my copy actually just shipped today from Amazon. They ran out of Xbox One copies.
There is literally nothing to talk about with that game. If you've
it's
played,
Rock Band.
And I wish I could say if you played Rock Band 3, then you know what you're getting with Rock Band 4.
No,
but that's not even the case. It's Rock Band 2.
Yeah.
So that's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's nice to have everything moving, all the stuff, my DLC moving forward, because I have like 1,000 songs or some crazy thing like that.
Here's the rub with that, though, is
a bunch of it won't transfer, I'm sure.
Well, no, it all transfers, but the process to do it is completely convoluted and a pain in the butt. Like, it's very easy on PlayStation 4, but nobody played Rock Band on the PlayStation 3.
That's true. That's true.
So I have this huge library of songs from my Xbox 360 that I had to get over to Xbox One. It was a nightmare doing all that stuff.
Is it like individual downloads?
Yep, you have to like go through a separate process for like everything. Yeah, it's really bad.
So just like reserve an afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So basically Rock Band 4 is a non-story, folks. If you liked Rock Band 2 and you want to continue playing more Rock Band, and look, one thing I'll say is that like it's still fun as hell.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. Like I'm glad it's back, and I missed it while it was gone. Like I said last week on the show, you go to parties, and I'm like, well, no one's playing Rock Band anymore. Now we got to stand around and act awkward. So I'm glad it's back, but it probably should have been a discounted game. It should have been cheaper. The fact that you have to get dongles for your old instruments as well is a bit of a detriment.
And then it doesn't support the Ion drum kit, which is what I use for the drums on the old one.
Lots of drawbacks to it, but we did want to mention it off the top. We're not going to talk about it in a future episode, but it was worth at least mentioning off the top. But now we got that out of the way, it's time to get to the Big Six. Big game announcement this week, Matt.
Yep.
Big. And
Ubisoft continuing the trend of announcing big stuff pretty close to the release date.
Yeah. I mean, so Far Cry Primal was announced this week after a very awkward announcement event. So at first they sent us to this like page where it wasn't even a page, it was like a live stream on YouTube, which was like these cave drawings that slowly the camera panned out and you could see more of the cave drawings. And then IGN Turkey. How does IGN have an IGN Turkey, first of all?
Somebody's got to do it.
Do they need IGN Turkey? That's insane. This shows you how big IGN is. But anyway, someone from IGN Turkey basically tweeted out the name of the game.
Whoops.
So the gig was up, and everyone already knew what was coming, and then finally the next day, Ubisoft puts out the debut trailer for Far Cry Primal. Now, first, I was really excited. Like, when that tweet went out from IGN Turkey, I was like, oh my god, it's Far Cry with dinosaurs. Like, I was so flippin' excited. I was like, this is like perfect. Like, they are making the game that I want. It's like the game that I wished Ark Survival Evolved was. It's the game that Turok should have become, blah, blah, blah. And then it turns out it's actually not dinosaurs. It's
accurate.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's set after the Ice Age, which, you know, if you believe... Well, as you probably should believe, carbon dating and things like that, the dinosaurs were wiped out by the Ice Age. So,
oh no, there were millions of years before that.
Right. Well, wait, the dinosaurs?
Yeah, dinosaurs were wiped out by the comet that hit the planet.
Well, I think the common thinking is that the Ice Age is what killed the dinosaurs.
No, the Ice Age was millions of years later.
Well,
there are many Ice Ages.
I think that's up for debate. But anyway, so... Regardless, this game is set 10,000 BC. The dinosaurs are already gone. So you don't have dinosaurs, you have woolly mammoths, you have saber-toothed tigers. Disappointing to me.
Giant sloths.
Because here's the real problem is that, like, the last Far Cry kind of had all these creatures already. Sure, they were an elephant instead of a woolly mammoth, and they were a tiger instead of a saber-toothed tiger.
That's a lot easier to reskin, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And so... At first, when I heard about the game, I was like, how do they have this game ready to go already? Like, especially considering it's like this brand new concept in this brand new setting.
It seems like the Blood Dragon equivalent for 4, basically.
Yeah.
Like we made like this weird little one-shot game using the same assets and engine kind of thing.
It is. And so I was initially really excited. And then it was kind of dampened a little bit when I found out what the actual time period was. But now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm excited for the game again. Like, first of all, I've really loved the last 2 Far Cry games. I thought they were great, and Blood Dragon I thought was great as well. I love the open world concept. What I love most about these games is the whole ecosystem and how you can mess with it, how there's like a food chain and animals that should be eating the other animals will attack those animals, and you can actually use that in gameplay to your advantage. And it always is a little weird when you come up to an encampment and there's like a tiger in a cage.
Yeah.
And they're like, why do you have a tiger in a cage, like, by your encampment? Like, you're just asking for it.
What we keep there, you know.
So, how are you feeling about it, Matt? Are you excited about it?
I'm in. I love Far Cry. Like, any more Far Cry, I will play Far Cry. I am curious about how, I guess you're using bow and arrows at this point in the Stone Age, so the core Far Cry gameplay is intact. I mean, I mostly use the bow anyway.
Yeah.
It looked to me like on that little poster thing that maybe you tame a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah, because it looks like he's like walking as your ally, basically.
Yeah. So I'm into that. Like, I think that'll be cool. So yeah, I mean, I like the idea of kind of this. I'm still a little upset that BC never happened.
Yeah.
So I do kind of wish there were some dinosaurs. I wish they gone a little crazier with it. But like,
I mean, look, it is a game that has some kind of mystic properties to it, and maybe a little bit of a supernatural bent to it. So there is a possibility,
or they're at least like snorting peyote or something.
Right, like they did with Far Cry 3 or whatever, to kind of bring the supernatural into it via drugs or whatever.
Right.
So there is maybe a faint possibility that there might be dinosaurs in this.
Yeah, there's some hallucinatory dinosaurs.
Right.
I mean, you've got the dragon models from Blood Dragon. You might as well use those for something.
For sure, yeah. And then my other big concern about it is that, like, obviously there are no guns because 10,000
unless
PC.
this game is very different than we think.
Yeah. So basically what they said is there are blades, there are clubs, and there's a bow and arrow. Mm-hmm. And, for me, the bow and arrow in the prior Far Cry games was like something I just kind of used to screw around with. Like, it wasn't like a weapon that I chose or a weapon that I felt like I was effective with. Did you use the bow a lot?
I probably use the bow 90% of the time.
How come?
Because it's quiet. They don't see me coming.
I guess so.
And I mean, by the time of Far Cry 4, like after so much of Far Cry 3 and Blood Dragon, I can headshot a guy from like 200 yards. I mean, once you get kind of the drop, the drop rate as the arc of the bow, like it is so good. There's nothing more satisfying than just sinking that into a guy's ear.
Well, I guess for you, the game won't change at all then.
Not really. I mean, unless I feel like there's probably going to be some kind of progression. They love their upgrade system, so I figure there's probably going to be a progression system where like, you start with like the stone arrow tip or whatever, and like you have to upgrade to like the obsidian one before you can really do actual damage to stuff. So we'll see. And I'm interested to see kind of if they go into like not traditional, but like historical mammoth hunting techniques. Where like one of the things they would do is they would wait for herds of mammoth to go through like little canyons, like little like narrow pathways, and they'd roll boulders like off to the side, and they'd roll a boulder off and crush the back of the last mammoth. And basically crush it and paralyze it so it couldn't move, and they'd go down and stab it to death. And that's how they'd hunt mammoth. Right. But humans are we're quite dangerous.
Resourceful when
we're resourceful,
hungry.
But we're also like there is no animal on Earth that can keep up with us endurance-wise. Like we are the best long-distance runners. We don't need sleep. We can push it. That's a basic way of killing is stalking, and you just like injure an animal and just follow it until it can't go any further. And that's why one of the reasons dogs are.
I don't think that would make a great video game, though.
Probably not. That's like the desert bus of Far Cry games. That would be. It's like, all right, wound the deer.
But here's the other thing, though.
Now walk.
Yeah, exactly, and follow.
24 hours.
Now here's the thing. Like the trailer shows like teams hunting the mammoths, so that makes me wonder if there's some kind of a cooperative element here, where you work with other people online to actually hunt the mammoth.
That would make sense.
It does make sense, but there's a lot of co-op stuff that makes sense that ultimately never pans out. So, I mean, we'll talk about a game.
Nobody's going to be driving the Flintstone car while you hunt out this. Like, that's the thing is, like, I wonder how much Far Cry can really make the transition when you don't have machinery and vehicles and hang gliders. And, I mean, it's like, I wonder how crazy, like, will you get like a hang glider made out of like wood and animal skin or something? Like, probably not, because they seem to be going pretty legit with this. But I wonder how much of like, are you going to be able to like maintain my interest for like 30 hours if I'm just clubbing and
That's
bowing?
The fear. That is definitely the fear.
Yeah.
Is that there's just not enough context or subject matter here to bolster a game for that period of time. Mm-hmm. I'm nervous about that, without a doubt. But I'm also excited because I think I'm still more excited for this than I would be if they just did a nut like Far Cry 5.
Right. Well, because like how many games set like this in this time period do we get? I mean,
like none.
Nothing. Like, at least it's something new. It's still, it's a spin-off or it's a Far Cry game, but it's like, it's different, and
coming in February.
Yeah, and fast.
Yeah.
It's like you're not going to have to sit here and watch this thing for 2 more E3s. It's here.
And you're not going to see us talk about it 20 more times before it comes out either. So, so I'm pretty excited about it. I guess you are too.
Yeah, I've loved every Far Cry since 2, basically. So I'll play anything they throw at me with that title on it. And
new information should be coming fast and furious because they have literally like a 4-month window for their entire marketing campaign. Yeah. So we're probably going to be getting trailers like at least once a week from here on out, and then with a week or two left to go before the game comes out, it'll probably be like every other day or something like that. Yeah. So get ready for the Far Cry Primal media deluge.
Throw another game on the spring release calendar. Jeez.
Yeah, for real.
Some of this stuff better start slipping.
No, I'm happy about it, man. As somebody who runs a website, like, you need it. Like, it's good to see that, like, we're going to have a good,
but that just means that, like, June is going to be awful.
Yeah. Well, June's always awful.
Yeah.
That's vacation time anyway, so.
It's E3.
Right, let's move on to the next topic of the Big Six. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. I'm almost to the point where I don't even know if we need to really talk about the game too much because the word's kind of out there. It's a piece of crap. It's broken. Although I will say Dave Lekovich, the guy who evaluated it for us, did kind of find that, like, the core gameplay is still there. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that core is like the core that you got with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, like, over a decade ago. So here's the thing, and here's a question we want to ask. Is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater done? I mean, obviously, he has a contract with Activision, and they had the contract stipulated they had one more game to release before the end of this year. So, one, that's why we've seen this game be released in a half-baked state.
And just get it out there.
They had to fulfill the contract. Otherwise, they're going to pay Tony a ton of money and not get any recoup on that money. So, first of all, we're not going to see another Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, probably, because Activision owns the rights to that, and they haven't renewed Tony's contract. So, that IP, so to speak, with that exact wording is done for. At least I feel like it's done for. Yeah. But, Tony does have the opportunity to move on and go work with a different publisher or a different developer and make another game. But the question I'm asking you, Matt, is it after a game like this, and after Ride and Shred... Is it done? Like, is there any reviving a video game with Tony Hawk's name on it at this point?
Probably not. I mean, if I were another publisher, I wouldn't want to touch that. Like, the skateboarding thing is, in terms of, like, the game craze is kind of over. It's like, I don't know if that extreme sport market really cares anymore to do that one, especially.
Well, I don't think the extreme sports market isn't what made these games popular. What made them popular was that they found a way to make a skateboarding game that everybody wanted to play, and that's what it was. Because there aren't that many extreme athletes out there.
I mean, maybe if I were EA, I would sign Tony Hawk and resurrect Skate.
I mean, that's our only hope, right?
Yeah, because people do have, I think, some good feelings towards Skate. That was a solid series.
Although Skate 3
burned
was a lot of bridges.
Great, but if you can take it seriously, if they can really say, let's leverage Tony Hawk as the biggest skater you're ever gonna get, and like really make it something that people who don't even care about skateboarding, like me, could play and be like, wow, this is a great game. Like,
they could call it Tony Hawk's Skate.
Yeah, yeah.
And the average person would not know any difference. They'd be like, oh, the new Tony Hawk skating game is out.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I don't know. And it does make me reflect on, like, the old days when everybody had a pro merker. Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer and Wakeboarding Unleashed.
I remember I did like a review on X-Play for that game where I was like, how far are they going to go with this, basically, was the whole concept of the review. Like, what's next? And I was like, extreme walking video games?
Well, then we got emails because they're like, actually, there is something called freestyle walking. And people are like offended that you thought it was a joke. Like, they're like, yeah, there is a real thing. Like, well, okay, but there's no such thing as extreme tricycling, right?
Yeah, like that was the other thing I did, yeah. And I think I was safe on that one.
Well, maybe not today. With the advent of YouTube, that may be an organized
indie games and Unity, where you can make a game with one person and a wish, basically.
Yeah. But those early 2000s days when everybody had their, all the non-traditional sports were trying to jump on that Tony Hawk bandwagon.
Well, Activision had a whole arm of its publishing called O2, which was like all its extreme sports games, because you had like BMX games, you had wakeboarding. It's like
skitching.
Yeah, exactly. Like they went overboard, and like that arm lasted, I think,
aggressive
for like
online.
I mean, it was crazy. There were like 4 or 5 inline skating games. Like, it just got out of control.
There was like a parasailing game, I think.
It was like the PS2 era. Like, and maybe the PS4 can get there to a place where it has so many people that own it that it needs niche games like that. Like, we still don't have like a volleyball game for like PlayStation 4, and like,
it'd be nice.
There's still lots of. I mean, there's Dead or Alive Extreme coming, which isn't confirmed for the US yet, but that's that's not a serious like volleyball game though. That's just like.
But wouldn't it be great if it was?
To look at girls.
Wouldn't it be great if it was like the best volleyball game ever?
Well, they're putting it in VR, and I have a feeling it may become the killer app for like PlayStation VR in Japan, because basically you're just looking at these girls in virtual reality, and I don't think there's going to be any porn on PlayStation VR, so that's as close as it's going to get.
But somehow like a direct descendant in some ways of BMX XXX.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that too. It is crazy how huge extreme sports games were at a certain time, and now we're down to like none.
Nothing.
Like this was like the last hope that really the genre had. This new Tony Hawk game. And
so there was a time when everyone played Tony Hawk, not just skater people, not just gamers played Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is just legend. And honestly, in my opinion, the best of the series was 3, because that's where they brought in the revert to manual, which would allow you to link your combos in between objects, and that's when that was like the pinnacle. That was before it got too complicated, but it was just in that sweet spot where there's plenty of depth, but it's not like overwhelming. And then after that, it just got insane.
Yeah, well, for me, the end was when they started trying to make them into stories.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought
the American Underground stuff just didn't hook me. It was too much busy work without like the old 1, 2, 3, and 4 are just like pure games.
Yeah, they're like arcade games basically. Yeah, I mean, I liked Project 8. I thought that was like
Project 8 is probably the best of that type.
Of that whole that whole type of Tony Hawk game. So I actually enjoyed that. I mean, I used to skate. I skated for like 12 years, so I have a different kind of attachment to these games than probably a lot of people do. And so I kind of enjoyed the whole part of it of like being a young skater trying to come up and impress people and become a pro and all. I probably got into it a little more than a lot of people did, but yeah, I mean, again, as someone who skated for a long time and has a personal attachment to that whole culture and scene, it's really disappointing, but at the same time it's not surprising at all, because I knew the developer sucks. Like they sent this franchise out to die. Activision knew all along. Activision sent out no review code for this game. Everybody got it they did send out code, but you didn't get the codes until the day it was released. And so knowingly, they're like, oh, well, we don't want these reviews to be out there before the game comes out, because that'll take away our chance to sell 10,000 copies that we're going to get from people who are ignorant and don't follow things online. So, yeah, I mean,
it was smart to call it 5.
Yeah.
I think you're really, it must be the real, especially in this era of reboots and follow-ups, like, you expect the reboot to be kind of a quality.
Yeah.
And apparently, no.
Yeah, it really stinks, man. I'm pretty bummed out about it. I managed to play the game for about an hour before I gave up, because it's just pointless. It's like it's just like Rock Band 4. It's like, why would I play this newer game that has less features when there's a better game? And sure, it may not look quite as good, but in this case, like, I don't know. Like, actually, like the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 games might look better than this game on PS4 and Xbox One.
It's just sad to me. I played the first Tony Hawk so much the first night that I got it. While I was playing at one of my friend's houses, and my car got towed because I was there all night until the morning when it became a no parking zone.
Yeah.
And we went out and like, my car is gone. Let's go play some more Tony Hawk. Like, it was just like,
oh well,
towing service will be there. We're not done yet. Like, that's how good that game was, and it's just sad to see where it's come at this point.
I think I agree with you, though. I think it's done. Like, I don't see it coming back from this. Like, Skate does have a little cachet still, because it was kind of like the more realistic take on skateboarding, which consequently was one of the big reasons I didn't like it very much.
Yeah.
Because it was just, like, too hard to do basic tricks. Like, I remember, like, for Skate 3, there was a tutorial at the beginning where they teaches you how to do, like, certain tricks, and I literally was stuck on the tutorial for, like, 35 minutes, because it's, like, all determined by where the stick is.
Right.
And literally, there's so many tricks that it's, like, 5 more degrees this way is a different trick. And trying to do the back up just to ollie and then get your thumb in that exact position and then spin it, it was like I got stuck on a tutorial trick for like 30 minutes and couldn't do it. It's like, to me, that's insane. It reminds me of...
especially something that you can probably do in real life.
Right, something I can pull off in real life anyway. It takes me back to like the whole Amped freestyle snowboarding versus SSX thing. Like, Amped was realistic, but it was like dreadful. Like, it was so hard to do anything in that game, and you constantly lost speed if like your edge was tweaked the wrong way, and then there's SSX, which is like, it's just fun. And I don't play games to get frustrated and pissed off. I play games to either kind of check out and go someplace I normally can't go, or to have some fun. And so I'm not into realistic extreme sports games, to be honest with you. It's like I just want to pull off tricks I can never pull off in real life. That's really what I play them for. So
it reminds me of getting stuck in the tutorial for Driver.
Yeah.
Where I couldn't do the reverse 180, and I'm like, I can do this in real life. I don't understand why I can't do this enough for you.
So easily, yeah. Yeah, any game that makes things in the real world more difficult than they really are, that's where you've made a mistake. Like, anytime you make something more challenging than it is in real life, that's a huge no-no, and you made a mistake there.
So, in summary, if someone's going to bring back one of those weird games that was still tons of fun from back in the early 2000 days, forget Tony Hawk and bring back Def Jam Fight for New York.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea.
I really like that game.
And don't have Robomoto to develop your game.
No, that's...
I have a feeling that studio is probably going to close after this.
You think?
Yeah, unless they move into like mobile development or something.
Mobile development, or like High Moon, where they just got like relegated to like Call of Duty map maker status.
Right, where they're just like they get farmed out for specific projects or certain games and things like that. So sad to see the series go, but
especially like that,
going out on such a low note. And it sucks for Tony too, because just out of curiosity, like I popped over to like his Instagram page and like his Twitter feed, and it was really sad because people blame him for this stuff.
Man, you think he even had anything to do with it? Like, it's just...
I mean, he was obligated to do marketing for it. It's written into his contract that he had to go and like do interviews for the game. And you can't sit there and be like, the game sucks, guys. Like, seriously? Like, keep it on the DL, but like, it sucks. Like, you have to sit there and be like, yeah, I worked really hard trying to make this the best game I could, which is true. He probably did. But can't.
There's only so much he can do.
He's one guy, and you have to, and that team has no pet. I mean, just the fact that Activision gave it to that developer after Riot and Shred. I mean, it shows that they didn't care. Because those games reviewed terribly, they sold terribly. I mean, Activision took a bath on those peripheral skateboards that they made. Like, it just shows that they didn't care and they were fulfilling the contract and whatever. Yeah. So, Activision kind of killed it, in all honesty. As soon as they took Neversoft off of that franchise, that was the end of it.
Yep.
That was it. They made great games.
Neversoft was the heart of that.
They really were. And once they were taken off, that was it. So, rest in peace, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. It sucks.
We hardly knew ye.
No, I knew you well. And that's what makes it so hard. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. Probably a big reason why people may or may not be watching the show right now live.
I'm surprised I'm here.
Yeah,
for sure.
The Star Wars Battlefront beta is live right now. It went live at 1 p.m. Eastern today for everybody. You don't need a special invite or anything. Just go to your... dashboard on your PlayStation 4 or your Xbox One, and there it is. You can go to the store there, and you can download the beta, and you can start playing really quick. One thing I will say is that I downloaded this beta for PlayStation 4 lickety-split, man.
Yeah, it was fast.
I don't know if, like, EA slid them some money for, like, servers or something like that, but holy cow, it downloaded in, like, literally, like, 5 or 10 minutes for me, which is great. And so... it's pretty limited what you can play. There's basically 2 modes. There's Walker Defense. Is it Walker Defense?
Assault.
Walker Assault. I had it reversed because you do play the other role in that mode. And then there's like basically a King of the Hill mode, a team-based King of the Hill called Drop Zone, where they drop like these pods from the sky. Both teams scurry to the pod, fight over the pod. Once it's finally captured, another pod comes from the sky.
You play to 5 pods.
Yep, and the first team to get 5 pods wins the match. So, Matt, you've actually played this a couple weeks ago before.
And there's also mission mode.
I actually have not even tried that yet, so maybe you can fill in.
It's like Horde mode on Tatooine, and like you can only play like 6 waves out of I think 15 in the final game, and only on easy. But basically, it's just Horde mode. They send waves of stormtroopers at you, and you have to kill them all and like capture some escape pods that give you like bonus weapons and stuff, which you generally then use to take down the scout walkers that come in.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I'm sure it'll be more fun when you can play like harder difficulties.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because easy. I'd imagine you probably finished that with no problem.
Oh yeah, it's kind of depressing.
How many players can play together in that?
2 players.
2 players. Oh, just 2.
Yeah.
Interesting.
2-player co-op online or split screen.
Okay, split screen. Yeah, some couch co-op there.
Yeah, and it looks like from the menu, it looks like you can do all 4 planets.
So let's talk first about Walker Assault. Mm-hmm. What's your impressions of that, Matt?
Oh, I love Walker Assault. It's 40 players, so 20 on 20. And the basic way it works is so it's the Battle of Hoth, and 2 AT-ATs are walking inexorably towards the shield generator, and they're invincible. Like you can't. They're invincible. So what the rebels have to do is they have to activate these uplinks, and if the uplink bar fills up, it activates a targeting lock for a Y-wing. And if you get enough of them, the Y-wings come in and hit the walkers with ion bombs, and that makes them vulnerable. So then the rebels are supposed to like concentrate all firepower on the walkers, and if you can destroy the 2 walkers in that fashion, and then like they get the ionization thing ends, you have to activate more uplinks, and then the Y-wings come in again. So if the rebels can destroy the walkers before they get to the shield generator, the rebels win. If the walkers survive to get to the shield generator, the Imperials win.
Here's my biggest complaint about that mode. There's nothing that tells you how close the AT-ATs are to being destroyed. There's no like visual feedback. Like they don't.
Yeah, there is.
I didn't see anything, man. I saw no smoke coming out of them or like anything.
It's not the Walker Assault. Yeah, that's true. Like they don't like they actually do steam at the top a little bit, but you can't see it from the ground. So the only way to tell is like they've got the little icons in the upper top of the screen.
Yeah.
And like they have the life bar is a red circle around.
Yeah. I can tell like how much health they had, but like there's no visual cue. Like at a glance, like look. This game is pretty fast and pretty crazy, and sometimes you just glance at the AT-AT to try to figure out like where he is. And like I had problems. Like there's a lot of times where like we took down the AT-ATs, and I had no idea we were even close to like taking them out. Like, but otherwise, it's a pretty unique mode and pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a little bit like the rush modes in like the Bad Company games, where you kind of move down the battlefield as the walkers kind of stomp across. But it isn't quite like anything I've ever played, and it's been interesting the last day or so to watch people slowly sort of figure out how it works.
It's complicated.
Yeah, well, especially because the rebels are really outgunned on this in this thing, because the AT-ATs are very powerful. You've got scout walkers running around. The trick
there's ATSTs as well, not just AT-ATs.
Yeah, the trick is the rebels really need good air support. And so like basically you can pick up X-wings, Y-wings, snow speeders, and when the AT-ATs get ionized, your Air Force has to go in on them, because you can probably take a walker out with like 4 passes of an A-wing.
Yeah.
They're very powerful, especially if you use the concussion missiles. And then if you're in a snow speeder and you pass by an ionized walker, it'll give you the prompt to fire the tow cable, and if you can make 4 laps around the thing, it goes down, no matter how much life it has.
As it should be.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of options there, but like the thing is, like the Imperial options are simple: walk forward, blow everything up.
Yeah.
The Rebel options like require a lot of finesse, and so slowly I think you're seeing people sort of figure out how to play it as the Rebels.
Yeah.
But early on, it was just like boom, like just like running over the Rebels.
I couldn't even figure out how to like act. When I first couple games, I couldn't even figure out how to activate the uplinks. I would go to the uplink.
You got to get so close before that prompt comes up.
Yeah, like I was standing there and I'm like, okay, like what's going? Boom, dead. Like you're right. You're totally outgunned there. It's like you've got AT-ATs and ATSTs firing at you, and then you've got like the foot soldiers coming through the trenches at you. Like it definitely feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I don't think. But what you don't realize is it doesn't take as much to take down the AT-AT as you think.
Yeah. Especially if you got the air support, or if you pick up like the smart rockets. Like smart rockets take off almost like a fifth to a quarter of their life if you.
And there's 2 of them that you have to take down. So.
Yeah. But it's a really fun mode, and I'm interested to see if there are more.
They were smart to make that one of the modes in the beta.
Yeah, I mean that's what everybody wants to see.
Yeah.
And it looks amazing. They just look incredible.
The game, right off the top, we should have mentioned, the game looks sick. Like, I'm playing PlayStation 4. I haven't even checked out the PC version in person, but the PlayStation 4 version looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
PC version looks super, just crazy. Like, that was nice. There's a couple of places where I'm like, you know what? Like, this looks better than the movies in places. Like
it does,
like the Scout Walkers and the Big Walkers are just like, man, that looks like legit. Like, those are amazing.
Yeah,
amazing
the lighting
work.
in the game is incredible. It runs at a good clip. Overall, I am really impressed with the visuals in this game. And for multiplayer, too, man. I mean, granted, that's pretty much all the game is. But
solid 60 frames the whole time.
with like 40 guys, like 20 on 20. Like, it's pretty impressive, man. Like, getting right down next to, like, the AT-ATs, the AT-ATs is, like, awesome, like, with their feet stomping around. Like, it is really close at times. It'll fool your eye into thinking that it's a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, and I'm also pretty impressed by, they've made flying the planes in Battlefield has always been a little sketchy at times. You're just like, oh, but they've really kind of worked out some cool stuff with this one with the lock-on feature, where like you hold the left trigger and you lock on an enemy fighter, and so you aren't just firing down the barrel of the fighter you're in. Like it will actually target, and then you can
which was also a good idea.
Yeah. For sure.
Because a lot of times, otherwise, with games, if you don't have that option, you just end up circling each other in this like endless loop, and you never like fire any guns. Like I remember Star Fox 64 had like a multiplayer mode, and all you ended up doing was just chasing each other around in circles, and someone would do like the backflip, and then the person behind it would do and it just became this like it was ridiculous. Like
who screwed up the input first?
Pretty much is what it came down to. Yeah, so. Let's talk a little bit about the base gameplay. The other mode, we don't really need to talk about in depth because people have played modes like that hundreds of times.
Yeah, it's pretty much basic Battlefield.
It's basically control points. Yeah. That's all it is. And so let's talk about the base gameplay because at the end of the day, this is probably what's most important. What is it like to play the game? Because if you don't enjoy playing it, the best modes in the world aren't going to make much of a difference after a week or so. Matt, how do you feel about the way the game plays? You already talked about the ships and how you like how the ships control, but what about the actual like shooting and gunplay in the game?
I feel pretty good about it. I like it. My enjoyment is directly tied to which gun I'm using.
Yeah.
I think the gun that the Rebels start with is terrible.
Yeah.
I think the gun the Imperials start with, the E11, which is the standard Stormtrooper blaster, is pretty great.
Yeah.
And then like the maximum, I think when you get to you can get rank up to 5, and you can in the beta, and I think that's when you get the like kind of the machine gun, sort of like the longer gun.
Yeah.
That one's pretty good.
Well, there's like you can start with an assault rifle. Like that's one of the first weapons that you can select in the beta.
Mm-hmm. Like there's because like I think
you play as the Imperial anyway, the Imperial gets like an assault rifle.
Imperial gets the E11 blaster, which is a really good like assault weapon. The Rebels have to get I think to level 4 to unlock that for themselves. So that's the first thing I tended to do was get because I hate that because I even felt it like when I was playing as the Imperials and I'd see like a newbie run up and like hit me like 5-6 times with their like starting weapon, and I'd just be like dead, and it's like. That's not. I'm sorry.
Well, that's one thing I will say.
I feel bad, guy. I killed that way. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say is I think they have some balancing work to do.
Definitely, and I'm interested to see like what the unlocks are and what further like abilities and equipment are in the final game because like. I mean, even just joining as a new person when the beta started, like I was getting just housed by people. Like,
it's not even that you're getting housed. It's like they have a gun that takes you out in 2 bullets
because they have way better equipment,
and your gun takes like 50 bullets.
Right. That sniped across the map and stuff like that. At one point I played a Walker Assault. It felt unfair
to me.
Yeah, I played a Walker Assault where my whole team was like 1s and 2s basically, and nobody had any way to fight back against the guys that all had sniper rifles.
They're all sitting on the range and they're just picking you off. Yeah.
So I'm wondering like and now I'm level 5 and I've got my jump pack and all this and everything's fine, but like for a while there it was pretty frustrating, and I'm wondering if in the final game. Will that be dealt with? Will it be magnified? Like, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do.
I think they have to fix it.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that I'll say about this game is it is like... It's a casual shooter.
Yeah.
It's not... And now that I've really played and spent some good time with the beta, like, I really think that the Call of Duty crowd will play this game at first just because it's Star Wars, but once that allure wears off and they've seen all the AT-ATs and they've seen the ATSTs and they've flown all the ships... I don't think this game is going to have legs with that crowd at all. Like, It is just, in my opinion, it is just too simple. First of all, the auto-aim is insane. Like, the auto-aim in this game, literally, you can snap to somebody who's, like, half a mile away with the auto-aim.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. But if you do try to manually aim, to me, it's very sluggish and slow. Like, I don't know, I haven't tried to mess with the sensitivity, but on the default setting... The aiming in this game seems really slow. And the game in general feels a little slow to me, I guess, if you're not in a vehicle or using something to speed up. Like, just the running speed. And maybe I'm just spoiled by the last few Call of Duty games where, like, speed and traversal has been, like, the focus. It just feels like an old game to me, I guess is the best way to put it. Like,
it doesn't feel slow to me, but I didn't play Advanced Warfare or anything very extensively. Right. So,
and if you haven't played the beta for Black Ops 3 either, then you haven't played like the faster Call of Duties really that much. And so to me, it feels it's the slow part isn't the biggest part. It's the aiming is slow.
Well, the other thing that I was surprised by that I eventually figured out because of a tip on the loading screen is like I am very used to like Call of Duty style games where like when you aim, you're more accurate.
Yeah,
and that's not true in this game.
That's not true. The crouching doesn't help you aim more accurately.
There's no way to be more accurate. Your gun shoots how the gun shoots.
And there's no drop in your bullets either.
Well, no, they're light. They're light.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. That is an interesting. Even on the slug throwers.
There's no drop. Yeah. That was I saw that on a tooltip on the screen actually saying that there's no drop in the bullets. Yeah. And like when I first started, I had no grenades, and they had grenades.
Yeah, the grenade thing is just like, oh my god.
It's like, look, every shooter gives you at least a frag grenade when you first start. Like, they don't put you in a world with people with grenades and not give you one. Like, that's insane. And like, so I start thinking about like, who are the people that are going to really gravitate to this? And it's probably more casual people who just love Star Wars and want to. And they, by all means, they should play this game. They're going to freaking love it. But those people are the ones that they need to be thinking about for this game. Like, and look, they are kind of like the auto aim. I'm sure is their way of saying, well, the people who are playing this aren't going to be like the big Call of Duty heads, and we probably need to make the auto aim a little more generous for them. And so there's some things where they have made smart decisions for those people, but then there's other ones where they haven't. Like the starting loadout and the fact that you're completely underpowered when you first start out compared to everybody else. And you know, a lot of that'll come down to matchmaking and how good their matchmaking is. Because if you're, but you know, matchmaking always sucks, Matt. Like they will never ever get it right. Like it just doesn't work. No matter how many times I've interviewed developers talking about how much time and effort and research and number crunching they put into their matchmaking, it still always sucks. Call of Duty's matchmaking sucks still, and it's the industry standard or whatever. So I don't know. Like I feel like this is like the casual guy's first-person shooter, which is smart. I mean, those
Battlefront has always kind of been that a little bit. You know, it's always been a little floatier, a little looser, a little more, hey, Star Wars blaster. Because that's the thing is like, what is combat in Star Wars? It's blasters and it's thermal detonators and it's, you know, it's lightsabers.
Vehicles and lightsabers, yeah.
So like, how do you make that? You can't possibly make that as deep as a Call of Duty. I mean, they've you know mixed up the different weapons, and different weapons have different stats, and like you know, there is a give and take on that. But you can only take that so far before you kind of go too far afield to have it feel like Star Wars anymore.
But even going back to my point about it being more for casual people, like the weapons, there's no like upgrading weapons or adding attachments to weapons and things like that to make them perform better.
It's not yet.
I mean, maybe at least what I play, there isn't any of that. Have you seen any of that?
Oh, no. But I'm just saying in the final game, I don't know if there's something like that.
That's kind of a big feature to not put in the beta.
Yeah, but they also don't, you know, they don't let you edit your character.
Right.
Or anything like that. I mean, I don't know how extensive any of that's going to be. I'm also interested to see, you know, if you go in like the mission section and stuff, there's like a tutorial section and there's stuff that you can't play yet because it's not part of the beta. So I'm interested
to see. Lots of modes that are...
Yeah, there's tons of stuff to do.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see kind of how those mesh, and maybe, you know, who knows, maybe some of those modes will be more the winners than Drop Zone, or like, you know, I want to play the Fighter Squadron mode really badly, but it's not in there.
Yeah. Well, you can see them all. It's all teams.
Yeah, it's all sitting there right in front of you.
The menu shows all the modes.
Not in the beta. I'm just like, oh, thanks, you jerk.
But I will say, like, despite all this, and despite the fact that I generally like games that are more hardcore as far as shooters are concerned, like, I'm still enjoying myself.
Yeah, it's got that Battlefield kind of like, oh my god, I can't believe that just happened kind of stuff.
Really,
crazy
it's
stuff
just
that happens
it's Star Wars. Dude.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Like, we were talking before we went live about, you know, I went and saw Star Wars in the theater like 5 times the first Star Wars because, as I had pointed out, it's like there was no such thing as like renting movies back then. Like, if a movie came out and you didn't see it, like, you didn't see it until it did like another run in the theater or whatever.
Yeah,
so
a lot of people don't know that, like, you know, back in the day, you know, pre-VHS, if you might never see your favorite movie again.
Right. And
like, it might never come back to theaters.
And even once VHS was out there, it still took a long time before there were like rental stores established and movies actually started coming out on them. Yeah. Like, really, it was like to record TV when it first came out, or to record stuff on your camcorder or whatever.
Yeah.
So
people used to collect the actual film reels of their favorite movies to watch them again, because that's the only way you could ever see The Godfather again.
Right now, some of the people on the stream, their minds are just going, But that's the way it was.
Yeah, and you thought it sucked waiting 4 months for the Blu-ray.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you would never see the movie again. So you would go to the theater and see it over and over and over because you knew once it was out of the theater, your chances of seeing it again were like slim to none, unless they put it on TV. Yeah. And then, of course, it would be neutered because censorship back then was insane.
And it wouldn't be widescreen.
Yeah, there was no such thing as a widescreen.
Yeah. Just cut the sides off. Who cares if you can see the guy they're talking to?
Yeah. So I guess to kind of sum things up, I am enjoying the beta. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think a lot of why I'm enjoying it is because it's Star Wars. Yeah. The audio in the game is absolutely mind-blowingly incredible.
DICE is one of the best at audio, and you combine them with Star Wars, and it's just like, what?
Yeah, I mean, the presentation in this game is sick. Yeah. Like, the visuals, the sound, it's just top-notch, Star Wars fan, wet dream. I mean, it is...
And earlier today, I killed an AT-ST with Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. So,
and it's so awesome. Like the first time Darth Vader's coming after you, and like you see him like hovering,
just like stalking
over
across
the battlefield. Oh, it's so awesome, dude! Like so, all of that, amazing, love it, psyched. But I know eventually that's going to lose its impact, and what I'm going to be left with is: do I like to play this shooter? Regardless of what the subject matter is or what factions there are, will I enjoy the gameplay? And in all honesty, like I feel like after a couple weeks with this, I'll probably be done with it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the thing that could ruin it for me, and that if, like as you're predicting, a lot of people kind of migrate or just sort of fade away from it.
Yeah. And
I'm left playing with just like the hardcore people,
which might be good.
I never find that fun though. The people that just want to like kind of min-max and people that'll exploit like weird things in the map to like win at all costs. Like I don't find that. The thing I love about this game is just the people swarming over the trenches and like shooting people down and like things are blowing up and somebody rammed a TIE fighter into an X-wing and someone like kamikazed a snowspeeder into a AT-ST because they couldn't think of any other way to blow it up and like it's just
it is filled with stuff like that.
And by Walker saw by the end, like when they're closing in on the thing and everybody's sort of packed into this one little sort of open field area and like the AT-ATs are just like raining fire down and people are just like doing anything they can to get those uplinks up. It's great. Like
Here is one thing I will say that
will it still be great in like 2 weeks, like you say? Like maybe not. Maybe you'll have seen it all, but like for now, like it is all the Star Wars I need until a new movie.
For sure. Yeah, and the movie comes out in a couple months. And the one thing I would say before we move on to the next topic is that on some maps, playing on the Imperial side is a huge disadvantage.
Because they stand out like a sore damn thumb.
Yeah, they're white.
Big white, yeah.
And
that's pretty good on Hoth. Though.
Right, on Hoth, they have the advantage. But on every other map in the game that's not all white, like you are at a disadvantage as a Stormtrooper playing on like that craggly, rocky map that we were just showing. Like, you stick out like a sore thumb, man. It's like... And if you're playing as the rebels, like you got like a brown uniform on, standing in front of a brown rock, like it's much harder to like pick them out. So that is one kind of caveat. I don't know how they can get around that though, because like all Imperial foot soldiers are white.
That's just a dumb thing that they did. Yeah. It's like or even like in episode 3, the clone troopers on Kashyyyk have like green camo armor. But by the time of Return of the Jedi, they're all just wearing their white Stormtrooper armor in the forest, like whatever.
Again, standing out like a sore thumb in the jungle. So
that's the Imperial arrogance for you.
The one thing I think I will say though is that like I feel like I'm going to give this game a pass in a lot of ways as far as like stuff like that because it's just fun.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll play this game to like be really competitive at it and get like I wasn't pissed off when I lost matches or when I had a bad match where I had way more like deaths than kills. Like
I get pissed if I pick up like the hero thing and someone kills me before I can use it. That's about as far as I go.
But otherwise, like I'm just enjoying like being able to have like it's a childhood fantasy to be able to play a video game based on Star Wars that looks this good. Like like Rogue Squadron was like kind of the first taste of that. Where I was like, oh my god, like this looks so close to the real thing.
And it's like, pretty much been 14 years since that.
Yeah.
There hasn't really been an equivalent since then.
Yeah. So look, I'm just going to enjoy this game and have fun with it. Like I think if you do sort of like compare it to other shooters, it's probably going to end up coming up pretty short, but I'm not going to play it for that.
No,
like
it's Star Wars.
It is. It's like a Star Wars open world Star Wars toy that you can just dive into and play with. And I think as long as people kind of have that perspective towards the game, I think everyone's going to have a good time with it.
Yep.
All right,
Agreed.
So time to move on to the next topic. A little bit of controversy happening in games journalism, if there is such a thing at this point. This is really discouraging because for once a site does actually try to do some real journalism and it turns into a total disaster. So Star Citizen, we all know this game has been, you spent oodles of money on this game already on ships.
Not as much as some.
Sure, but you spent a lot.
A few hundred.
And look, there's thousands of people just like you who have spent a ton of money on this game. And we keep hearing all these crazy stories coming out of development. It's been happening for the last 5 or 6 months. And he has to keep coming out and saying, no, everything's okay, it's all right, this is all bull crap, and, I don't know, these are disgruntled employees or whatever. Well, this week, the Escapist ran a story where it actually interviewed and talked to a lot of people who know what's going on there, and a lot of people who were employed there, and pretty much none of them had good things to say about working at the studio, about the head of the studio, the direction of the game, the quality of the game. I mean, they basically just let loose. And so, Escapist ran this story, and then the lead developer, what's his name again, Matt?
Chris Roberts.
Chris Roberts. So he comes out and was like, oh, this is all crazy, and they don't know what they're talking about. And they were accusing the Escapist of getting the information off of a web page where
from Glassdoor.
From Glassdoor, where basically you go and review employers. So say you leave your job, you can go there and you can review that company that you just worked for, and there's really no checks and balances there. No one knows how true any of those reviews are. I have looked at Glassdoor reviews for GT, for instance. I've looked at reviews that people put up there because I used to be a manager there. And I think as a responsible manager, if you want to be able to get some feedback on what it's like working in a place, you go there. And I will say that most of the reviews on Glassdoor were total bullcrap. The people who said that they had worked at GT, the stuff that they said had never happened there, and there were probably employees that were let go and were pissed off and decided to lash out. And so I can understand where the developers might think that that's what's going on, and because what happened was a lot of the things that the Escapists wrote in their story actually did end up on Glassdoor. And so they were saying, they were putting the chicken before the egg, basically, and saying, well, you guys just copied and pasted stuff off Glassdoor. Which, what happened was, at least according to the Escapist, is that they talked to the ex-employees first, and then the ex-employees went to Glassdoor and reiterated what they had said to the Escapists. So,
which is interesting that they would do that immediately after talking to the Escapists. It's that's a weird... Either way, that's a strange series of events. Why didn't you put that up before?
Well, maybe it's a scoop thing. Maybe the Escapist was don't put this up on Glassdoor until you talk to us about it first, because then we don't have the scoop. Because if they put it up on Glassdoor, then anybody can go there and grab those quotes and run it in a story. So maybe it's one of these things where the employees were we want it to get out there, what happened. And the Escapist was okay, we'll do that for you, but you have to give us some level of exclusivity on this story. And so what we're getting at here is that what happened in the last couple of days is that it's starting to bubble up now that they may actually try to sue the Escapist for what they're saying is false reporting. And so the managing editor is a guy named John Kiefer, who I have known for years and years. He worked at GameSpy. He was the editor-in-chief or the managing editor of GameSpy for literally 20 years. He is one of the oldest journalists in our industry, and he is now the managing editor of games coverage at The Escapist. And I know this guy. I know he's buttoned up tight. I know that he does things the right way. I know he comes from a traditional journalism background. He's not mucking around. And so he basically came out and said, look, I'll tell you exactly how we did it and how we vetted all our sources and checked in triplicate on... I mean, basically the whole thing, according to the Escapist, is completely buttoned up and legit. And despite what Mr. Kiefer wrote and said about what happened, still, they are oh, no, we're going to get you guys. And so, Matt, is this the right tact for the developers to take?
No, because they have no shot.
Yeah, I mean...
here's the thing. In order to actually win that case... what are we? Oh, is it Cloud Imperium? Is that their Cloud Imperium they have to prove that the Escapist ran that story knowing it was false,
right?
And you will
did it
never,
I believe,
and did it intentionally to injure Star Citizen,
yeah.
And you will never, ever, ever prove that.
I mean, you could.
But there's no way. There's no.
They'd have to subpoena
You would have to
their
be
email.
in such bad faith, and there would have to be so much of an email and paper trail of like, we're going to get these guys, and we're going to do it by like making these things up, or like, I mean, I don't even know how you go. I mean,
they would have to subpoena their email, and they would have to find communications between employees where they literally colluded specifically to hurt their company or their game. You'd have to find an email that says, we're going to get those fuckers.
And I do not believe that, I mean...
It never happened.
No. I mean, the Escapist, like, you know, whatever you think of them as an outlet, like, I don't think that's their MO.
No, there's no way.
So why would you invite that kind of thing? And for hit, like, it's like, is Star Citizen really news in that regard? Like, I don't think that's like a big hit thing. I mean, rumors have been coming out about that game for the last year, about what it's like to work there. And Chris Roberts says, this stuff isn't true, or this is what this is, and these guys don't, these guys are too low level to really even know anything that's happening at the high level of the company and all that. And maybe so, maybe not. I am willing to believe that Escapist really did talk to these people who really did say these things. Are they true? Do they matter? I don't know.
Well, the truth of the matter is that it's probably a lot of it's embellished. I mean, they probably are disgruntled ex-employees who are unhappy
that they're
let go.
But if the head of HR really is Chris Roberts' wife, like, that's bad.
It is bad,
like, that's, you've got a weird situation.
And that's black or white.
Yeah.
There's no interpretation there. No. Either she's the head of HR or she's not.
Isn't. Right. And that goes beyond, like, the implication, they imply, there are people insinuating that she'd said racist things, or they refused to hire people for racial reasons and all. I mean, that's really bad, but again, that just comes down to hearsay. But if his wife really is running that, then that's not how you should be running your company.
Yeah.
Like, that's like right there. I mean, right there,
it's
that
keeping it all in the family is what it is.
Yeah, and like, how can you feel okay going to them with a problem with management when management is married to the person you're supposed to report that to? It doesn't make any sense.
How do you go to HR to complain about your boss when HR is the boss's wife?
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's just bad form, like really bad form.
I mean, in the end, a lot of, this has really kind of started to focus on these weird little, like, managerial issues where in the, I don't see a lot of stuff in the development process that people are talking about that would necessarily be all that unusual in a normal, moderate to troubled production that we just wouldn't hear about because there's not as much contact with the community, because they're trying to be transparent with stuff because they've taken $85 million from the community. So, like, you're trying to be a little more but then that inevitably leads to, like, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing with his money? What are they doing?
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, it looks like, judging by the Gamescom footage, it looks like they're making a game.
They are making a game.
Frankly, I don't know if it's going to be any good. That's the thing. It's like, I feel like this thing's going to launch day one, and it's going to be pretty much the bare bones, functionally, what they promised. It's going to be Squadron 42, the single player kind of like wing commandery thing, and you're going to have the massively multiplayer kind of Elite Dangerous style thing. Functional but not very robust, kind of like Elite Dangerous was.
Yeah.
Where, you fly around, you could trade stuff, but that was about all there was.
Yeah.
And like, all this other stuff, because they're treating it like kind of an MMO like platform. All this other stuff is going to roll out over the course of months and years, and I just wonder, like, how much of the donation base, of the fan base, of the user base is expecting this game to be the greatest thing ever made on day one.
Yeah.
And how many of them understand that it's going to be a process?
I don't think any of them are going to understand that, Matt.
Probably not.
I really don't think so.
But as someone who is a backer, is a donator, does have a hangar full of 6 or 7 starships with lifetime insurance, like, I want it to be great. I just hope that happens eventually. It's like, if it's not the greatest thing I've ever played on day one, I'm not going to lose my mind.
But I think some people will.
I think some people definitely will.
Here's my issue with this whole thing, is that it's kind of what I said off the top. It's like, it's really hard to find real journalism in games journalism. Mm-hmm. And here, to me, was a case where an outlet actually did some legitimate reporting and some legitimate investigating, and then ran it and vetted it and triple checked all its sources and did everything by the letter, at least according to them, by the letter of the law. And look, if someone's threatening to sue you, you don't go out and make false statements, by the way. So I put a lot of faith in John Kiefer that what he said is true. So it's just, all these other outlets are sitting around watching this.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, so the Escapist ran a story, and now they may get sued, and this guy has $85 million. Probably not. I mean, he's probably just doing it to try and save face. But the bottom line is,
I think one of the things that happened here was
embarrassed.
They're embarrassed, and Star Citizen was ready to counterpunch hard after the Derek Smart fiasco from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and the counterpunch just ended up being misguided, I think.
Yeah. Towards
an outlet.
Well, to the point that the Escapist even flat out said Derek Smart was not one of our sources. Which goes to say, I think that really was kind of an unspoken center of some of this, was the Star Citizen guys were already sort of on the defensive about that,
Yeah.
And even though, I don't, Derek Smart was accusing them of very similar things as these ex-employees said to the Escapists. So,
which adds some credence to the stuff that he said.
Yeah, I mean, and they got real nasty towards, in their statements, denying Smart's allegations. They got real nasty towards him.
They did, yeah.
Not entirely wrong in some cases, but still it crossed what you would probably consider a professionalism line.
For sure. Yeah.
And so, especially from the guy who is apparently Star Citizen's legal counsel himself.
Yeah.
Usually you don't get into the name calling if you're the legal counsel for a major corporation.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing, though. I feel like this whole team that's working on this game is just flying by the seat of its pants. I feel like they're like, holy crap, we just got $85 million. What the heck do we do with it, man? When you have that kind of money managing, some of the allegations were they're just blowing through the money. That they're spending it stupidly and they're wasting it on stuff they don't need to spend it on. And, when you give somebody money who hasn't really had that kind of money, mistakes generally end up getting made.
I just don't, it's I don't want to believe that the guy who made Wing Commander is naive or ignorant enough to have that happen to his project, especially because I want that project to be good.
For sure.
But I think after the debacle of 38 Studios and Kurt Schilling, I can't.
All bets are off now.
Yeah, I can't discount that as possible. Maybe that is what's happening.
Yep.
I don't know. There's no way to know. It's their word against. Is their word against the Escapists or their ex-employees or Derek Smart or whoever, and there's no way to know for sure what happened or who's right until that game comes out and we play it and it's good or bad.
And there's other examples like Silicon Knights, they were mismanaging money that the Canadian government was giving to them,
or the Gearbox Alien Colonial Marines thing.
I mean, look, there's plenty of examples of stuff like this going on, and so you probably have a little more faith in the people behind this project than I do, but.
I mean, they've made some of my favorite games of all time. Chris Roberts has made some of my favorite games of all time. So I can't, I just, it's hard for me to believe that this would be one giant.
But you've never worked with him?
I haven't.
Or for him?
No.
And until you do, you never really know.
Nope. You don't know.
So, bottom line is, one, it was a really stupid decision on the part of the development team and Mr. Roberts to do this. It's not going to generate any positive momentum for your game. It's not going to change anybody's mind.
No.
People have made their minds up now. They've heard from, the Escapist said that they had 5 or 6 people talking to them that basically corroborated the reports that came out before. And so you're not changing anyone's mind on this. So one, why are they doing this? Why are they lashing out? Maybe it's all a marketing ploy, Matt. They're just trying to generate some interest in the game because it's been in development for so long without many updates. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand why they're responding to these kinds of allegations in the first place. Because, look, dude, the community already threw $90 million at you.
Yeah, almost. How much more faith do you need?
We're in. I don't know what else you want, bro. Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah.
But a bunch of disgruntled ex-employees.
Because we've all worked places where somebody left, and then we saw them later, I hated blah 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 there, and I hated this person. Look, it's human nature. That stuff happens. So we all know that. We've all worked in jobs where people have left and they were unhappy, and we've seen what's happened. The whole thing just seems really childish.
And also, okay, let's say hypothetically everything in the Escapist article is true. Let's say it really is horribly mismanaged. They have
which probably 75% of it probably is.
They have $3 million left. They're going to be financially broke by January. It's all everything's falling apart. It's all going crazy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? What should they do? Like, what's the call to action on this? Like, what's?
Well, I think they're saying,
what are we supposed to do?
Well,
like, do we demand our money back? Do we like?
I think that's what they're saying. They're trying to get the people who invested in it riled up, maybe to make them accountable. Because I don't think they said that they have like no money left.
No.
I think what they're saying is they're spending it stupidly. So maybe if somebody like you, who's put in a lot of money, or some of these people who've literally put in like tens of thousands of dollars into this project, get angry enough. Maybe there's some checks and balances. Maybe they at least reevaluate what they're doing and they start spending their money more intelligently.
But as much money as I spent or other people spent, like, I understood when I did that I am throwing, just like Kickstarter, I am throwing my money into a giant hole.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that one
Something
day
pops up
a good game flies back up at me and hits me in the face. Like that's. I mean, I know that I might have been literally. I mean, it's the closest I will ever get to gambling.
Yeah.
On a large scale, to just like putting 600 on red and seeing if a good Wing Commander game comes out of the roulette wheel. Like that's literally what I feel like I'm doing right now. And it's like
I don't think a lot of people look at it that way.
Probably not, but it's like it's not an investment. It's a risk.
Well, it will be now with Fig though, right?
Yeah, with Fig it'll be different. And like, and that's
as long as you're accredited.
Well, yeah. But that's another, that's a whole
other
element. I'm sure that this kind of thing and the rumblings of this, which have been sort of percolating through the industry, through the development community for a couple of months now. I'm sure that was part of their,
I'm sure this is exactly what Fig was hoping for.
Yeah.
For a big, high-profile project like this to come crumbling down. And not that it is crumbling down, but certainly I feel like confidence has been compromised a little bit in the project.
A little bit, but I still say that, like, if you look at that Gamescom video, like, that's pretty much what they said they were going to make.
Yeah.
And there it is.
But,
I mean, there's a lot more to go. And
a 10-minute demo or whatever. I mean, actually, it was more than that, but still.
Yeah, but I'm willing to wait and see on these games, especially these space games that I've been wishing for and hoping for a long time. Even if they are super troubled projects, I don't know. As long as I don't care how troubled something is if it comes out good.
You'll care if nobody wants to buy your ships off of you.
I pledged that money like 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
Like, I'm not gonna miss it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like it's over. It's like that was like 2012's budget.
You've written that cash off.
I'm over it.
Now anything that comes back is gravy, right?
Right. And like but it's the same as like No Man's Sky. People keep the skepticism surrounding that game, where it's like people keep looking. It's like, yeah, but what do you do? And it's just like, you do that. Like if I can fly, it's just like Elite Dangerous. If I can fly around and do some cool shit, like, I'm happy, and I don't need. I hope Star Citizen is not as tedious as Elite Dangerous with the whole like, all right, throttle up. Okay, now you're going 4 times the speed of light.
Yeah.
No, put the thing in the blue space. No, you overshot the space station. Turn around, go back. I hope it's a little more. It's a little less like that.
A little more user-friendly.
A little more user-friendly, but not as arcady as No Man's Sky.
Right.
If it starts to hit that
Somewhere
like
in the
middle ground,
like
I'll love it to death. But I need it to come out.
Yeah.
Sometime this decade.
I think maybe that was part of the point of the ex-employees, was like, maybe they're raising the red flag saying, hey, as somebody who just worked on this project, we're really starting to wonder if this game is ever going to be released.
Look, how about I'll lay this one down for Chris Robertson team. Get me Star Citizen before I can buy Kingdom Hearts 3.
There you go. That's a fair deal.
There's your goal.
That might be a tight race.
Get Star Citizen out before Kingdom Hearts 3.
That might be a tight race, actually.
Could be.
Yeah.
But previously I would have said Last Guardian, but it looks like that might actually be
I think that's not even a close one, I don't think.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3. I think that's a good nebulous, far off year.
Yeah.
So
it could be 2017.
I think it will be 2017.
That's probably when Star Citizen will, and by then we'll have forgotten about this, and we'll probably have talked about it on GameFace another 5 times. So anyway, I admire the Escapist for running the story and being a little brave with it, and I hope it doesn't discourage other outlets from doing the same in the future. That's my big concern.
Also, on our little list here, it's called Star Citizen, the Escapist Controversy, and I think that's what Star Citizen's first expansion pack should be called.
Wouldn't that be a nice thumb in the eye right there? And then the Escapist would sue Star Citizen.
Yes. And it's a perfect circle.
The circle is complete. Yep. All right, so it's time to move on. We're going to talk about Transformers Devastation. You guys have seen my game eval up on Sifted, so you kind of know my opinion on it already. But here's the thing, Matt, if there's someone who's a bigger Transformers fan than me, it is Matt Kyle sitting right here. This guy, you've been at Toys R Us over the last couple of months getting the toys, like the ones that have been coming out. You wait in line for that stuff. You are probably the biggest Transformers fan that I know, in all honesty.
I would be surprised if
there's someone who knows more, yeah. And you've been playing the game, Matt. What is your opinion on the game?
I like it.
I also liked it.
It's I think it's a little simplistic. I think it's, as Platinum games go, it's a little shallow. And I think it makes a kind of a negative first impression in terms of the city is very simple. It's very circular. It's kind of, you're doing the same thing over and over and over. But like once you get into chapter 2 and you get like in the ship underground and there's a turret section and there's you got to get through the electrified doors and the variety kind of kicks in a little more. So
driving sequences, driving race sequences,
racing, and I also bumped up the difficulty to hard because normal was easy enough to be boring to me.
See, I didn't find it easy at all. Here was my problem. I was not synthesizing weapons because I went to the synthesize system and I couldn't figure out what the hell it was doing. It's okay, I combine these two things, but it still stays the same thing, but it has a little boost and it was one of those things where I was I don't want to do something wrong. And basically screw myself out of this other good base weapon, change the base weapon into something that became unusable or something I didn't like, because there's really no explanation of what it does.
It doesn't seem to. You basically just pick the weapon you want to stick with, you want to upgrade, and then you pick all the random crap you've picked up to just sort of throw into it.
See, I didn't figure that out until a while into the game, that I could basically just make sure the weapon that I like stay the base weapon, and then I can just throw all this other crap into it, and it'll slowly creep up the abilities.
It took a while for me to kind of realize that, okay, so these D-list, dual pistols, no matter how cool they look, they're never going to be any good to me.
Yeah, there's no reason to keep them.
I've got, 2 B weapons on Optimus, and I just throw everything into them.
See, I didn't figure that out until I was, halfway through the game.
Okay.
And literally, if you do not do that, the
difficulty curve is very much based on synthesizing.
Yeah, and it was brutal, dude. Yeah. Literally, boss fights, if you're not synthesizing your weapons, you're just chipping them down, man. And no matter what you do, most of the enemies in this game kill you with a few hits.
Yeah, they are. It's Platinum, so it's not. I think 3 or 4 hits, even on normal, 3 or 4 hits from Devastator kills you in the first boss.
Yeah.
But you got the tools to deal.
Even the mini boss guys that you fight,
I thought the Constructicons individually were harder than Devastator.
Well, they'll hit you and they'll take a third off with every hit.
And you fight 2 at once.
Yeah, and so for the first half of the game, I was struggling because I wasn't upgrading my weapons, and literally it was they'd hit me 3 times, I would die, and I'd have to hit them 400 or 500 times to kill them, and so. It was and the crazy part is, it made me really good at the game because I was literally I was a master. I could chip them down and kill them before they could hit me 3 times. And so, and then the other part of it too is that if you destroy objects like cars, you can get health from them that way. And it took a while before I figured that out.
You were constantly gathering the stuff in this game. That's interesting.
The game does a bad job of telling you what to do and how to play.
Well.
That's one of my biggest issues I have with this game is it doesn't tell you what the hell's going on and how to do stuff. It just doesn't. The game itself is linear, and there's always a waypoint to follow. It's not that you never know where to go or what to do. Basically, it's kill whatever's there.
But that's Platinum, in a nutshell. It's here's a bunch of game systems that we're not going to tell you how it works, kind of thing. You'll figure it out halfway through, and you'll be oh, that's
exactly what happened to me. So I struggled, but then it was funny once I started synthesizing weapons, within 2 or 3 small missions, because then I just took all these weapons I had and just dumped them all into my literally I was already outstripping the enemies.
And I was also early on I for whatever reason there's the thing where Wheeljack can use your credits to make new tech or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was oh, it's one of those bouncy things. I'm good at those. And I just I made 5 gold items that boosted my health regen or all this stuff, and I stuck them on everybody, and they were godlike for the next.
I did
chapter.
that, and I couldn't tell any difference when I put those items on my guys.
I got a couple of good things off of it. Basically, things that boosted my they have the individual ability. Sideswipe can do the backflip or the dash or whatever.
Their supers basically, where you click both sticks. You mean?
No, there's they have each one has I think it's R1 is their individual ability. I think Prime there's a dash punch. I don't remember. I've only used it.
It's not R1. R1 is focus. That's when you dodge.
Oh, that's
it's
right.
L1.
So it's L1.
Yeah.
L1 is their character ability.
Yep.
In addition to their super move.
Yeah.
And so like that made that bar fill much faster, which like made Sideswipe much more effective.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly just use Optimus Prime like the whole game.
Prime is I haven't gotten a Grimlock yet. But Prime is definitely the best.
I played Grimlock for a while just because I love that character.
Yeah, same.
But after I played with him for like a couple of missions, I was like, he sucks. Like, I just went right back to Prime.
Prime is the best so far, for sure.
Yeah, he remains that way pretty much. Like, all the other guys have like a deficiency here or there, but like Optimus, he's just solid like all around. And like, I mean, I enjoyed the game. It's kind of a cheap game. Like, you can tell that this isn't like Platinum's A-Team making this game.
Yeah, this is not the Revengeance budget.
This was like the A-Team guys coming in once every 2 months and checking on stuff and being like, yeah, you need to change this. But this was like Platinum's like B or C team making this game.
Now, this was a lot of Bayonetta people.
I don't know. I mean, maybe the guys who worked on the combat engine, because the combat's good.
Combat is Bayonetta with robots.
But the rest of the game, like, just the way it's designed, I mean...
Well, there's no the set piece stuff of Bayonetta isn't where you're not flying up in the air on flying...
There's none of that.
Yeah, it's not... it's pretty humdrum, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you fight, like, these rank-and-file robots until you get to a clearing where you fight a mini-boss. Then you fight a couple mini-bosses, and you get to another clearing where you fight, like, a big boss. And you fight... all the guys over and over again. Like, you end up fighting the same robots, and, like, I won't ruin anything for you, but really the last sequence of the game, it really starts to get ridiculous, where you have to fight, like, well, again, I don't want to spoil it, but...
Yeah, I don't care.
The end of the game is a gauntlet where you fight everybody you fought in the game.
Yeah, I figured.
Again.
Well, that's how the beat-em-ups go, basically.
I mean, it is so stupid, too. I mean, look, and it's... Transformers cartoons were like this, and so I get it. But it's like, you fight these guys, and like they're laying on the ground smoldering, and you don't finish them.
Well, this isn't the Michael Bay movies.
Yeah, but it's so silly, because then like 5 minutes later, you're fighting that guy again. You're like, I just whooped your ass. Like, why are you here?
What do you think's different 5 minutes later?
Heap. Like, well, the difference is that there'll be like him plus like 5 other guys to fight at the same time. So... But here's the thing. There's never been even a decent G1 Transformers video game. And now there is. Like, this game is at least decent.
Yeah.
Like,
I would still prefer a Fall of Cybertron follow-up, but this, if this is what we get, this is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Especially because they went back and got all the original voices, at least the ones that are still alive.
Yeah, the audio in the game's great. It's kind of like Battlefront, actually.
Yeah.
It's just, they have all like the sound bank from the original cartoons and the voice actors.
And the music's done by Vince DiCola, who was the composer for the Transformers movie in '86.
And the guy who stands in, or the people who stand in for the voice actors who aren't still with us or just couldn't get on the project, they're great. Like, I did not pick out a single character, and maybe you did, but I did not pick out a single character that did not sound like the real character to me.
Starscream doesn't sound right.
Really?
No, not at all. But
no one I thought was a little off, but
no one sounds like Chris Latta.
Yeah,
like, that's the problem. It's like, whereas like Wheeljack was also, I believe, was also Chris Latta in the original, and his voice is dead on.
Yeah,
like, his voice is great.
I mean, the voices are pretty distinctive.
Oh yeah,
and like to get people like I'll agree with you. He's not perfect. But he's still really good, man.
They're doing it. They're doing it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, of course, Frank Welker is Megatron, but Frank Welker can't really do the Megatron voice as well anymore because it's very hard on his voice. It's a hard voice to do, and he sounds a little more like Fred from Scooby-Doo than is comfortable. But I will always I prefer Frank Welker over someone doing an impression of the original Megatron every time. I mean, it's great to have that cast back together. Yeah. And it's great to have Michael Bell back as Sideswipe, not just because of Sideswipe, but because Michael Bell was so many other incidental minor characters, and so many of them are in this game that, like, when Scrapper comes up when you fight the Constructicons, and it's Michael Bell doing his like little taunt at the beginning of the fight, and I'm like, that's great! Like, that's like super authentic. It feels like you're watching a lost episode of the cartoon.
Yeah, and I felt like this game was that actually.
Yeah. Well, the story is silly enough to be.
Yeah, exactly. It reminded me, I'm like, yeah, if you go back and watch those old Transformer cartoons now, like, how I viewed them when I was a kid, and like now I watch them, I'm like, wow, I was really dumb when I was a kid.
Yeah. I remember the first time I went back when Rhino put them on DVD, and I remember watching them, and I'm like, Because I remember them being like super cool and fun little adventure thing. I watch them, I'm like, oh my god, my parents must have thought something was wrong with me.
I know. My mom bought me, like, I think it was in my 20s, she bought me like the whole like set of DVDs. And I think I made it through like 2 episodes.
Yeah, they're not, they're background noise.
They don't hold up well, yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, like, I think the voices do.
They do.
I think they work as radio plays, but you try to watch them, you're like, oh my god, none of this animation makes any sense. Starscream just changed color 5 times.
I know. It is.
Someone
funny.
got paid for this.
Yeah, they did. Yep. And I paid them. I watched their shows and I bought their DVDs. Yeah. So, and I guess my other main criticism of the game is that there's no co-op, and the whole game is like
it's super weird that there's no co-op.
You and the other 4 Transformers are like a team, like fighting the Decepticons, and like.
Well, to the point that the first like mini boss is Megatron. And you fight him as Bumblebee, and Optimus Prime just like stands there and watches you.
The whole game is this way.
It really seems like someone else was supposed to be playing with you. It
gets ridiculous too because, like, especially towards the end of the game, there's like these huge scenes where you and the team are like united, and you rush into this area, and like a cutscene happens, and then the fight starts, and they're gone. You're just like, where did you go, bro? I gotta fight like 5 of these guys all by myself. You were just here. And then like the next cutscene happens, and it's like they were there the whole time. But so you may be right. Maybe originally it was supposed to be a co-op game because there are like
there seems like there's hooks in there.
Yeah,
I don't just mean the Constructicon.
There are a handful of battles where they do actually fight alongside you, and they're the best fights in the whole game. Yeah. Like, they're awesome. Watching, like, everybody else do their thing and mixing in with them and, like, protecting them, like, loved it. But there's, like, hardly any of it in the game. So, look.
There was a great screenshot on NeoGAF of the fight with Megatron, and Megatron is literally stomping Bumblebee's face into the ground, and Prime is behind them just, like, whistling.
Yeah.
Just like, like, what to do next?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, look, there's all kinds of anomalies like that in the game, stuff that just doesn't make sense, and, you know, I think I said in the review, it's like the more you think about it, the worse it gets, basically. And so if you just want to turn your mind off and go back to your childhood and enjoy the G1 Transformers, this is the best opportunity to do it, and it'll probably be the last best opportunity to do it.
For a while, yeah. And how weird is it that we got this from the same publisher as Tony Hawk 5?
Yep.
You want to talk about treating a property with a license with respect and a license without respect.
Here's the thing about that, too. They didn't send this game out for review to anybody.
No.
Everybody had to go buy it. Yep. They never sent codes out for this at all.
Wow.
Like, it was, we went and bought it on our own, and I saw, like, Polygon's review was like, we went and bought the game, like, and it's not terrible.
No, it's platinum.
Like, I get it for Tony Hawk. They knew the game was bad. It was bad. But this game's, like, good.
It's getting, like, 8s and stuff in the 7 to 10
high,
press. But in you know...
Still, you send that game out to be reviewed. Like, your internal guys probably had to tell you, like, it's going to do okay.
Pretty
like,
good,
It's not going to set the world on. It's not going to be in Game of the Year conversations.
It's going to be in the 70 range on Metacritic. It's fine.
And that's probably where it's going to end up. But they did not send it out to anyone to review it. Like, we went and bought it. Yeah, it is weird. But so if you're a G1 or even just a Transformers fan who's really pissed off at what Michael Bay did to this franchise,
and you should be.
That is actually like the whole tone of my review is like Michael Bay like took this away from us, and this game gives a little bit of it back. Like,
and if you don't know about it as well, go read the IDW Transformers comics because they're the best Transformers ever.
Yeah, and maybe once the new comic series come out, like maybe there'll be other games based upon this universe.
Well, you know, there is they are making a cartoon series coming up out of Combiner Wars, which is the current IDW big year-long story thing. So if those do well, maybe we would get games based on.
And there are combiners in this game.
Yeah, a couple of combiners.
Yeah, there are. And I'm not going to say whether you get to control one or not, but there are combiners in this game, and so maybe that's a hint at what's to come. I will say, Platinum, I mean, they nailed the aesthetic. The game looks awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, they nailed it. The look, the way the lighting works on the characters and everything, the way they did the cell shading for it, like, they nailed it.
And it runs real smooth.
Runs like lightning. The sound is amazing. It's a Transformers dream, basically, but like I said, the more you really look at it, and if you really start to evaluate it the way you would evaluate other games, it starts to fall apart a little bit. But
it beats the hell out of that Japanese-only one
on
for
PS2.
Sure.
Yeah.
where with like the Dynasty Warriors kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're a Transformers fan, like, I don't know that I'd spend $50 for this game. Yeah.
Depends how much of a fan
I guess I would, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a big time Transformers fan,
I don't regret $50 for this.
Yeah, there you go. So
I've paid more than that for more terrible Transformers figures. So
you're right. All right, let's move on. So Metal Gear Solid 5 has been out there for weeks now.
Yep.
And one thing I will say is it looks like the game is not having big time legs at retail.
No?
No, it's like at the bottom 10 in Japan already. In Europe, it's pretty much got shoved out of the top 10.
Fans bought it and
it
didn't
appears
really
that
go
way.
beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, we had said on the show, or I don't even know if we had mentioned this on the show, but the game about a week ago needed to double its sales to break even. And at first when I saw that, I was like, oh, no problem. Now I'm starting to wonder a little bit if it is going to hit that, in which I don't really care. After what Konami did through the whole process with this game, and what they did to Kojima,
and what they just did,
and what it's doing, period, I really have no sympathy for Konami at all at this point. So I really don't care if it does make its money back or it makes any money.
Tanks.
Because Kojima's paid, the guys who made the game are paid. The only people that I care about making their money have made it. So I don't really care if it gets its money back or not, or how its sales do. So release a game, this is really a rarity. It's release a game and then have the multiplayer component come out a month later. And so now I've played the multiplayer component, and maybe now I understand why Konami hated Kojima, because in my opinion it is terrible. It is completely awful, Matt. And so you can see there, MG, no. Here's the thing. They focused on the exact wrong thing with the multiplayer. And the one redeeming part of it that I do like is the fact that there's a little bit of that Kojima pixie dust in there. You can Fulton characters out, and there's these little plushie dolls that you can put down that will mesmerize people. There's all these cool little things in it, but the base of the game is complete garbage. First of all, it completely exposes Metal Gear Solid 5's controls as clunky, and they don't work in this context of a game. When you have a set thing that you're telling somebody to do, and there are parameters that you're laying down, the controls work, and the game works, because you're saying you need to go and extract this guy, you need to be stealthy. The problem with Metal Gear Online is that it doesn't work that way. They try to tell you, oh yeah, you need to use all these stealth skills. Dude, it does not work. Every game ends up just becoming a shootout. It's team deathmatch. No matter what the objectives are, or how many toys and tools they give you, you can't win by using them.
That's pretty much how it was in Metal Gear Solid 4, too.
It's the same thing. It is the same game. It's in Metal Gear Online, for Metal Gear Solid 4, I played for 3 days and quit. And this game, I made it a day, and I have no interest in going back.
I still think it's of all the things I ever thought I might want out of Metal Gear, online play really wasn't in there. I never thought oh, it'd be great if I could play this game multiplayer. I don't understand how that would work.
Well, I mean, if you go back and think about Splinter Cell found a good way to do multiplayer.
Yeah.
Remember, you did a whole series of
the co-op stuff.
I mean,
or even the competitive was good too, with a 2-on-2 and all that.
There are ways to do it, but they have gone about it the whole wrong way. It feels like Kojima is obsessed with the West, and he's he sees Call of Duty, and he sees Halo, and he sees these games that people are playing a year after they come out, and I feel like he wants his games to be that way. He doesn't want his games to be disposable. Yeah, there's like I said, there's cool stuff. If you salute people, it links you to somebody, so you can spawn on them. There's cool little stuff in it, but the base of it is just garbage, and it just doesn't work. If you have a mech in the game, it just destroys and dominates. There's no. Here's what happened with this mode. They're let's put this, and this, and this in here, because it'll be cool to have it in there. But they never thought about how everything affects everything else, and how having one thing will render something else moot and make something else irrelevant. And they just never, you can just tell, they've never made a multiplayer game like this. They don't know how to balance it. They threw a bunch of crap in a pot, and they're like, hey, people will play around with this and have fun with it. And sure, for a day or two, it is fun. But if you want to have staying power with a multiplayer mode, you can't design your games that way. I don't know. Like, to me, it was a huge waste of money and resources for them to make this and put this in the game.
Yeah, they could have, like, finished the story instead.
Right, because, what we're discovering now with data mining and stuff like that, and even some quotes from Kojima, is that, like, what we played of the campaign was not even, like...
Like 20%.
Yeah, of what we were supposed to get. So, putting your team on this, instead of finishing your opus, basically, is what... Metal Gear Solid 5 is Kojima's opus for this franchise anyway, here's the bottom line, Matt, is it's bad management.
Yep.
And that is exactly the problem that Konami had with Kojima, is he's a bad manager. He did a poor job managing the budget. He did a poor job deciding what features to put or not put in the game. He made a poor decision in green-lighting MGO again.
Sounds like maybe the Escapist needs to write an article.
Yeah. And there'll be no one to sue him. So, to me, it's a huge disappointment, Matt. Mm-hmm. Like, and you're right. It is exactly like the last Metal Gear Online. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how long you stuck around the last time.
Like 2 days.
Right. And I actually did go back at one point, and there was, like, enough players, like... 2 months later, there was enough players to fill up like 2 servers. Like literally like 2 games worth of players playing Metal Gear Online. And so, the servers went down, like eventually they just took them down because no one was playing it. Mm-hmm. It's a huge misappropriation of funds, of energy, of time.
Not a great week for Metal Gear. No. Really. Especially, and on top of that, you had the microtransaction, like horse armor and stuff went up, and they did that an upgrade to the forward operating bases that basically steal your resources to like force them onto the forward operating base so other players can steal them more easily.
Oh, and they announced like the insurance.
The insurance thing.
So if people take your stuff, like you don't really lose it. Like the game is spiraling out of control quickly, Matt. It really is.
And it's amazing how many of them these are all free to play ideas.
Yeah.
For a game that we paid $60 for.
Yeah. You're totally right. And then the pachinko thing, like they filed a copyright for the Big Boss pachinko machine, and like, yeah. I mean, look, I enjoyed the campaign. If I had spent $60 on the game, I would have got my money's worth. Like, I played it for dozens and dozens of hours.
But I think in the end, like, I mean, it's like, I can see the potential for it to have been one of my favorite games of the year, but it can't be at this point.
Yeah.
With all these weird things they're doing,
it's
the shortcomings, all that feeling of like what we could have had but didn't get. See,
I never look at games that way, really. Like, I really just look at what the game is. And
I try not to, but I think there's no way to look. Once you get deeper into Metal Gear Solid 5, especially in the story missions, there's no way to look at that game and not feel like we got something that was like, oh my god, just put it together and get it out. Like, just get, it feels pasted together, and like it's like. And
that's Kojima's fault, by the way.
For sure.
Because he had all the time in the world to make this game.
Well, it's like Soul Reaver, or like, where it was like, whoa, that game just ended, or like Soul Reaver 2, where it was like you go through a one linear path to the end of a thing, and then you walk all the way back, and like the story cutscenes happen along the way. Like there's no there.
Yeah.
It's just you can tell that it was just like this thing that was slapped together to get something out the door.
That actually sounds like Metal Gear Solid 4, what you're talking about right there.
Yeah, that's not wrong. Not wrong.
But, I do think it's one of the better games of the year so far. I mean, there's still a lot of big games that come out the rest of the year.
In terms of, like, the actual on-the-ground gameplay, yes, for sure. But it's just, it's kind of a tragedy in that, like, when you look at sort of a bigger picture version of it, you're like, oh my god, imagine if Kojima had been able to get his act together and make what he really had in mind in a timely and efficient manner. Like, what a game that would have been. Yeah. What a game it already is. But what a game it could have been on top of that.
Before this came out, I was even wondering, I'm like, okay, if they've really got Metal Gear Online to a really good place, like, I may need to have to go back and, like, adjust the game eval a little bit. Like, if they really knock it out of the park. And now I'm thinking, like, maybe I need to go back and, like, drop that connectivity score down a little bit. Like,
what was it on connectivity?
I think it was a 7, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. But regardless of whatever I gave it, like I'm wondering now if I need to drop it down like 1 or something like that.
Well, I'm certainly not happy that they took a bunch of my shit. Like they stole a bunch of my tanks.
Yeah.
Like now you can only have like 3 of like each vehicle, I think, in your like basic like your mother base inventory, which also means you can't sell them.
Right.
You can't sell the others. Like if you're using that for income, no. Like if you had like 23, whatever armored vehicles. You now have 3 of them, and 20 of them were sent to your fob.
Yeah.
which is like, hey, like what the? I was doing something with those. Like, it's amazing that they would do that without, there's no option, there's no opt out, there's no warning that that's going to happen. It's just people who upgraded suddenly are like, hey, all my resources, like my raw materials, just like all went to my fob, and I can't do anything about it. And like it's such a strange. Like there's a lot of anti-consumer, anti-customer, like choices being made here on this game after the fact. And
surprise, surprise.
Yeah, and it's not. It's like it's dirty. It's gross. I don't like, and like everybody's kind of stuck with the game because everybody loves the game when they're playing it on the ground.
Yeah.
But then there's all these all the meta stuff is starting to like become this sort of like, oh, you're just fucking with me now.
I'm done. I'm finished with Metal Gear. I mean, and this is probably the last one, so I mean, I'm done with the campaign, and I have no interest in going back and playing Metal Gear Online, so I really don't even care what happens to this game now. Like,
not even the home version of the pachinko game?
I'm done. I'm over it. Like, Metal Gear Solid 5 is done for me. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, last time I was playing, I was like, you know what, maybe I should just put The Witcher back in.
Yeah. Actually, that segues very nicely into our deep dive we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we get to that, it's time to go to our trailer of the week. So next week, The Witcher 3 is putting out its first piece of paid DLC. Mm-hmm. Everything that's come out so far has been free, and big ups to CD Projekt Red. I mean, man.
Not just for that, but for not stealing all my herbs and putting them in my forward operating castle or whatever the hell.
Yeah, I mean, they have done a masterful job of handling this game. I mean, look, we're months away from that game coming out. We're just now getting the first piece of paid DLC, and by the looks of this trailer, it's going to be awesome. There's actually, I think, a couple reviews have gone up for it already today, and they've been pretty much glowing. So here it is, the launch trailer for the very first piece of paid DLC for The Witcher 3. What is it called? The Hearts of Stone.
Hearts of Stone.
Hearts of Stone. The Witcher 3.
Which is interesting for something that like is kind of a little bit of focused on a card game.
Yeah.
Hearts of Stone, Hearthstone. Are we trolling a little bit there?
Could be.
Project?
Well, you'll decide for yourself after you watch this launch trailer.
Greetings, Geralt. Remember me? We met in White Orchard. I helped you find Yennefer. It seems you need my help again. Do you want my help? It's a deal. Let me tell you a story. It's about a man, worse than most. A man who refuses to pay his debts.
Well struck, Witcher. But perhaps you'd care to tell me why you meddled in a matter not yours.
You're immortal.
Indeed. But it's not what folk imagine. Not dying does not mean eternally living your life to the full.
So it's a curse.
You must be careful what you wish for there are consequences.
You need to get into the vault. We break in, each take what we need. You one I can count on.
Why do you wish to see the lady of the house?
See how I've reeled her in? Now don't fuck this up.
All right,
wacky.
So yeah, it is wacky. It looks insane. Well, it brings back that one crazy guy from like the original base game, who I kind of hated in the base game, but I can see why they brought him back. But I think it looks awesome. I'm excited to play it, but I haven't even finished The Witcher 3 yet.
Oh no, I'm not anywhere close, really. I gotta go. They keep putting it. It's like, oh, right as I'm about to go back, they're like, oh, the next patch is gonna make everything even better, and I'm like, all right, I'll wait for the next patch then.
Well, the patch that they just put out had 600 fixes.
Yeah.
600. That's insane. It was also like gigs and gigs of information, apparently. So
yeah,
I think
those
a lot
guys
of that is
do
just prepping
incredible
you, getting it ready for the expansion. But that leads us into our deep dive this week. And so CD Projekt Red, very hard at work on Witcher 3 DLC and obviously patching the game up. But they're also very hard at work on a game that has been known about for probably, 2 or 3 years now. And that game is Cyberpunk 2077. They came out right before E3 and said you're not going to hear anything about this game until next year. Fair enough. They're working on their Witcher stuff, but they have been plugging away at this game. And so the big news that came out this week is that CD Projekt Red said that this game is going to dwarf The Witcher 3. And
I don't even know what that means.
I can't even comprehend what that means, Matt, because here's a position.
Does it take place in all of France? What is it?
Like, you cover all of Earth and then you go to some other planet? And So here's the question, Matt. When does a game become too big? Because here's my perspective on The Witcher 3, is that it came out. I wasn't the one doing the game eval. You did the game eval for Sifted. And so I didn't have to finish it. And so I played it for the first 4 or 5 days, and then I got really busy, and I still have not been able to go back and play, and I'm not going to be able to. Already, there's so many games coming out every week. I don't know when or if I'm going to be able to finish The Witcher 3. And I feel like I need to have kind of Game of the Year conversations at the end of the year. It's too big. I'm intimidated by it. I already know how big the game is. I know how much time you spent with it. I know how much time everyone else has spent with it that's already finished it or played it. And I just know that it's too much, and I cannot commit that much time to it right now, or I don't know when. Because Q1 of next year is insane, too.
Yeah.
So, when does a game become too big? I would argue that maybe The Witcher 3 is too big. Look, my job is playing games, and it's too big for me. I don't have time to finish it. And look, there's a lot of people out there who, squirt away an hour here or there. The wife and the kid are asleep. Oh, I've got an hour and 30 minutes to play. And they play for that hour and a half, and, trying to squirrel together, these little patches of time to try to get through these games. It's in your opinion, when does a game get too big?
I would say that there's 2 different answers to that. The first answer is Just Cause 2. Just Cause 2
that game was too big, yeah.
But the reason it's too big is because there are only 3 things to do.
Yeah.
It was this map the size of England, and you had you could go blow up a location, blow up all the things in a location, and then you would own that location, or you could do a story mission and help the rebels or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you could do, that was it. It was you were doing the same thing 1,000 times. Whereas The Witcher 3 doesn't feel too big to me because it carries itself narratively and content-wise through that size without repeating itself too much. So I would say, it's hard for us as game journalists or whatever to kind of get through these things and speak authoritatively about them in reviews and as Game of the Year. But I don't think, there's so few of us in comparison to the mass gaming audience. I'm never going to say that a developer, if they want to give someone that much bang for their buck, especially CD Projekt Red, I assume when they're talking about Cyberpunk being that big, they're also talking about being that content dense.
Oh, for sure.
And I have friends that are still, they're
but
not.
But do you think people need to be able to finish game? I mean, maybe that's the base of what this topic really is.
I don't know.
Should people be able to finish video games? Because if you look at the numbers, it's 15 to 20%
finish them, period.
Game, and that's good. That's a good number for a game. I mean, usually the number is even far lower than that. Does it matter?
I don't think so.
Let people finish games?
I don't think it. Most people, I don't think they care. I have some friends that picked up The Witcher 3 basically on my recommendation. They're not in the industry. They're not and they love it, and they keep playing it, and it keeps going.
Keeps giving.
And they're I spent $60 on this thing back in May, and I'm still playing it, and I'm wait, they're where am I? I'm you're 20% in,
yeah.
And they're real, and
they thought they were getting to the end.
Right,
but they were discouraging for them to do that?
They're all thrilled that the $60 they spend in May is going to carry them through May, the next May. They're excited that is because they like the game so much they don't want it to end, and it doesn't. it doesn't grind on them, I guess. And it hasn't started to grind on me. Like, I'm not tired of it at all. I've just had to move on from it to like play other things because this is what we do.
Right.
You know? Yeah. But I'm definitely going to go back to it when I can because like
I just don't know when I will be able to.
It is a problem, but I just
honestly, if I knew the game was like 20 or 30 hours long, which still is really long, by the way, for a video game or for anything, I would be much more apt to go back and play it. Because right now I feel like I'm in this hopeless place where there's just no way I'll ever be able to finish. I'll never be able to dedicate that much time to this game while I have to play all the other games. And so it's discouraging to me.
Well, Shane, if you're going through hell, keep going. That's all I can tell you about The Witcher 3. You are always making progress.
I know. I totally get that. And I played the first couple games, and I don't think I finished either one of those either.
The Witcher 1, I will say, is probably too big for its content. Yeah. Like, it's too much running across swamps. And there's not enough to do to justify the size of it. The Witcher 3 is like, it has the content density of 2 in something with the sprawling nature of 1. And to me, that really holds my attention. Something the size of Just Cause 2 that has only like one kind of thing to do, like that I think is too big. Or like Fuel, like that game, which was like, I think it was like 75 square miles or something. And it's like, why?
Here's the thing, though, too, Matt, is that the games that sell are these games, the ones that are huge. Like, those are the ones, look, Grand Theft Auto 5, perfect example. That game is still in the top 5 of sales every single month. Still, that game came out, like, what, 2 years ago, year and a half ago?
Part of it, I think, is just our obsession with, like, more for our money. We're like, for like 25 cents more at the movie theater, you can get
the big popcorn.
You can get the big popcorn. Or you can get the soda that's the size of your head.
Yeah.
And like, do you ever finish that? No. But like, not unless
I'll get a stomachache trying though.
But it's like, but you still got it because it was like, I get so much more for that. And so I think that's kind of what a lot of those games are. Is I'm sure tons of people know. You look at the achievements on Grand Theft Auto 5, where it's like the high level, like completionist ones, and it's like they're all ultra rare.
Yeah, see, I would argue that
people don't get there.
I would argue that Grand Theft Auto 5 is a game that does not hold up for the whole time. I felt like that game, like the missions after a while started to get repetitive, and I felt like it just had become a means to an end.
I finished it on PlayStation 4, but I did not finish it on Xbox 360. Because like, I think it was after like the second or third heist where they took your stuff away afterward, like because you kept going through all the planning stages, and then like something story related would happen, or like, like Trevor isn't allowed to do that, or like, no, you have to like, you're not, we didn't authorize that, so you're like, don't get to have the spoils of the heist you just pulled off. Like after a while, I'm just like, look, do you want me to have any fun at all story, or and I just sort of like drifted away from it. Yeah. But then I decided to really push through, and you're right, like it sags in the middle, like you wouldn't believe in places. But I got through it, and I'm glad I did. And
I enjoy Grand Theft Auto 5, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was a great game, but I would say that game was too long. Like, I don't think it held up for the whole playtime, and I think Rockstar knows that the games that sell are these games where people are like, oh my god, I spent 50, 60 hours with this thing.
But again, I hope they take a cue from The Witcher in that, like, part of the problem with Grand Theft Auto 5 and why it feels too long is there's not enough to do. And like, there's a lot of empty space in that world that doesn't have anything of content value to it, You're just driving past it all the time. And if there was more to do with like, individual points of interest, like maybe more of those random strangers, like, something to kind of give the world a little more life in terms of because it's like people say, like, you've created this amazing simulation of a fictional Los Angeles, and the only thing I can really do in it is punch people.
Yeah.
There's no other way I can change this world or touch this world. Yeah. And like, I think that's why it feels too long or too big, is because it's empty. And I don't think The Witcher gets that way from at least.
No, I agree. I mean, I only played it for probably 20 hours before I had to stop.
Only 20 hours.
Yeah, but when you're talking about a game of that
you
size,
barely scratched it. Yeah.
But see, that shows you my perspective on it. Is that I've played it 20 hours, and I'm like, I've only played it 20 hours.
Yeah.
And there's still
when I did the Game Eval, I'm like, I've played it about 100 hours. I think I'm good. I think I'm ready to actually talk about it. But it's like, But yeah, it's huge, and the amazing thing to me is that no matter, I'm probably close to 150 hours at this point, and it just doesn't run out of stuff.
No, because it doesn't. You're right. It does a great job of mixing things up and keeping things interesting and introducing new characters into it that makes it exciting. Like that was the other thing with Grand Theft Auto 5. I felt like it kind of introduced all the characters like right away, and you kind of knew those people, and it didn't do as good a job as prior games as developing those characters and making you care about them. Like. It just seemed a little more vapid. And so then there's this other kind of section of games like Demon's Souls. So these are games that are really hard and really challenging, but they're also like really freaking long. So, you know what? If somebody had told me Bloodborne was 10 hours long, like I probably would have been way more apt to continue playing that game than I did. But knowing that it was really hard and challenging, and that there were 20 hours or more ahead of me of that challenge, it turned me off to going back and finishing the game. Like, I felt like, all right, if I'm going to struggle, I'm okay doing that for a while. But if you're telling me that, like, you want me to struggle for a 40-hour work week, then it becomes intimidating. And again, when you do what we do and you need to keep playing the new games that are coming out so you can talk about them and know what the hell you're talking about, it discourages you from going to play it. And like, I don't think the average consumer is all that much different from us either in that regard.
I think they're very different in that regard.
Well, I think they do want to play the new games and they want to play what's coming out.
But I think I think people don't play as many games as we might think they do. I think
the casual player only buys 3 to 5 games a year.
And I think they want those games to last 30 to 40. And I think 30 to 40 is a good bang for that $60 buck. And like I think like we operate on kind of this like, oh God, if it's beyond 10 hours, I don't know if I'm going to finish it and I just need to get through it. And like, I feel like we kind of have one of the weirdest like first world problems ever for like playing this hobby we love. And I think our perspective is a little weird in that regard.
Oh, for sure. Sometimes I look at myself outside of this bubble that we kind of exist in, with us as journalists and with the hardcore gamers. Like, I often wonder, like, my wife is used to it at this point, but I often wonder, like, what my wife's parents think of me and what I do, and, like, because, they're from rural Pennsylvania, and it's different. And so, they're like, oh, he's a grown man, and what is he doing? He's starting a website about video games, but aren't video games for, like, 5-year-olds to be playing, and why is he,
all those 5-year-olds mastering Bloodborne.
Right, exactly. But see, they don't get it, There's this stigma and these expectations of what games are for the average person, and it's like, it's sometimes interesting to just try to look at everything as from a third-person perspective. And, I think if I told some people I know how much time I spend playing video games, or that there are video games that take you 60 hours to complete, they think it's insane. And I think a lot of those people do end up dabbling into games, and I think that they are the people that I was kind of talking about when I was saying, like, some people like to get an experience and then move on and play something else, and maybe some people...
I'm definitely like that. I mean, once I feel like a game doesn't have much more to show me, it's hard for me to stick with it for another, 20 hours.
And that goes back to what we were saying about content. And so if you don't have the content to support that 60 hours that you're asking from the player, I think you're right. That's when the games are too long. And
it's also, like Mad Max. Like, I feel like, I have probably another 10, 15 hours left in that game, but I feel like I've hit the point where I'm like, you don't have anything left to surprise me with.
Yeah.
So do I really want to just slog through the rest of that to say that I did it?
Yeah.
And I don't think I do.
Yeah. And see, that was kind of what I was getting at with Demon's Souls and Dark Souls and any game that's just crazy challenging, is that I feel like it's like an artificial extender. Like, I feel like the amount of content that's in, let's just say Bloodborne, for example, like, I spent several hours trying to get through, and I've said this before in the show, like a section of a game that normally would take you 5 minutes, because every enemy that you fight is like a challenge and something you really have to tackle. And so to me, those games are too long for what you're experiencing. The amount of content that you're getting in those games versus the amount of time that you're spending playing that content, to me, seems a little out of whack.
Yeah, but to me it's not like really the length of the content. It's that the challenge to me on that is like, because I don't find Bloodborne really that difficult. Didn't find Dark Souls 2 that difficult outside of certain choke points. But it's more like The difficulty for me is like I have to concentrate and be on top of my game at all times. Because that's the thing is like they're not like constantly hard. They're only hard if you stop
if you don't pay attention.
If you let your guard down.
Yeah.
And so like it's like, can I stay at that level of concentration for 40 hours? Not all at once.
Yeah.
You know, and there is kind of that feeling of like the thing that stopped me from going back to Bloodborne after about 20 hours or so was that thing is like, all right, I could play Bloodborne, or I could play something that doesn't quite feel quite so much like homework.
But see, that's my point. That's what I was getting at. Is that like that's why I think the game is too long, because I would be okay if that game were like I said, if I knew it was like 10 or 20 hours long, like I would have been like, okay, I can take this challenge on for that long. But I feel like it's like torture for me to say I'm going to do this for the next like 40 hours or whatever.
You can speedrun Demon Souls in about like 10 minutes.
Right. Right, if you know where to go.
You're going to miss some content.
Yeah, a lot of it. And you're going to fall through some floors and whatnot. But so let's move on to Skyrim. Skyrim, I feel like that's a game that did a pretty good job of fulfilling the whole time that you played it.
It's interesting in that like The Witcher 3 has very specific content points all around the world, whereas Skyrim's environment tells a story. It's not necessarily an organized quest, maybe, but like you'll go into a ruin or something, and you'll be like, "Oh, this happened there." Fallout had this too from Bethesda, where like you could kind of piece together what had happened in this ruin, and it kind of told this like little informal narrative, and so that kind of pulls me through it. And also like I love the world and the design and the art design and the Norse like element to that, and the fact that like here's a dragon fighting a bunch of mammoths, and like it's just like you never knew what you were going to find.
I think Bethesda in general, its games generally do a really good job of providing a long experience that stays engaging the whole time.
Yeah, I think so.
Because there's ebbs and flows to it. Like there's parts where the game gets hard. There's parts where the game is more relaxing, and there's you're just kind of talking to the NPCs and gathering in the lore and figuring out what to do, or just looking at stuff that looks freaking awesome. Like
Oblivion, I think, dropped that for me about how I had to really force my way through the second half of Oblivion.
I never finished Oblivion.
But Skyrim and Morrowind...
So I'm right there with you. I couldn't
Skyrim and Morrowind held me the whole time.
Yeah.
I went through the whole thing.
Well, you get Fallout 3.
Fallout 3 for sure. Fallout New Vegas didn't. Fallout New Vegas didn't grab.
A lot of people think Fallout New Vegas is like the best Fallout ever, believe it or not. Now that it's been patched a million times or whatever.
Maybe, it might be time to try it again for me, but I didn't get more than like 5 hours.
I never even played it. I never even started Fallout New Vegas. It just came out at a time where I think it was Q4, and I wasn't assigned to review it, and somebody else was, and la-di-da, off it went. And I never went to go back to it. But Skyrim, I feel like, is a game that does manage to sustain that long playtime and keep it interesting and not get boring. And then the last game we want to talk about is Final Fantasy XII. Have you played that game, Matt?
Oh, yeah. I think it's the second best Final Fantasy ever made.
Yeah?
After 6.
Do you feel like it made... Because that is a really, really long game. Did you not get bored with that game by the time you were done? Because I don't think it does hold up. For that amount of time.
Well, the thing is that like the story stops, and then like you've got like 40 hours of grinding, and then the story kind of finishes at the end. Like, it feels like there's this gap between like.
And see, in that gap, I died.
I really liked it. I love that world, the Ivalice world. I liked the characters. I liked it because it's basically Star Wars. Like the story is basically Star Wars, and I liked just I liked the Gambit system once I figured it out. Which, to be fair, once you figure the Gambit system out, the game kind of plays itself.
It does.
Like it's like kind of setting up almost an MMO system and a logic system that like means you don't really have to do anything anymore. But I really liked how it felt. It felt like a fresh take on what the series could be, and
I thought it was way too long, man. To me, this is the reason I brought it in here, because I wanted this to be like the shining example. I had no idea that was your second favorite Final Fantasy.
If you want to talk about Final Fantasies that are too long, I'm going to talk about Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah. This one, though, to me,
the 40-hour tutorial.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right, before you actually get into the main game or whatever. But this game, for me in particular, just really struck a chord with me. Like, you're right. Like, stuff happens, and then nothing happens for forever. Forever. Like, after like 15 hours of grinding, I was like, this isn't fun. Like, I'm not enjoying playing this game anymore.
I totally get why you would think that. I mean, I don't know why quite this thing hooked me. Maybe just because I haven't really genuinely liked a Final Fantasy since 6, and 12, like, was like almost the kind of adventure ideal that I wanted out of the series, and it was at least something different from the usual, like, we watched Evangelion too many times, like whiny, like anime, like storyline.
Yeah.
With a quick stop off of Final Fantasy IX, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I just liked that it was something different. It was a fresher take on things, and I really didn't like 10. So, and I didn't really, 11 was an MMO, so it was like, this was kind of a nice synthesis of those ideas after that time. But like, I get why people are divided on it. I would kill someone for an HD remaster of this thing. But I don't know if that'll ever happen, because he seems even Square knows, like, yeah, that's kind of the weird one.
Well, no, I think that there's rumors swirling about it happening, so...
Well, there's rumors swirling around about Final Fantasy VII, but, like, that took us...
it happened.
15 years.
Well, remember, this came from a composer, though, the first bit, and then she's like, oh, no, I misspoke, and then it came back up again. It became, it appeared on, like, a retailer site or something. So it looks like it's actually going to happen.
Well, I'm on board. Although maybe,
would you play it again?
Yeah, I'd play it again.
Really?
Maybe I wouldn't get through it this time.
I'm really surprised to hear that.
Maybe I'd be older and wiser this time.
So let's go back to what originally spurred on this topic, Cyberpunk 2077. Would you want a Witcher that's longer than The Witcher 3? Would you be okay with that?
Sure.
Really? See, I feel like you eventually need the cap. You need to be able to reach the finish line. Like, the finish line is what makes everybody run hard.
But you will.
It's just human nature. But
you will reach it. It's not an endless game. It's not an MMO. It's not World of Warcraft. There's an end there. You'll get there.
I'm not going to make it to the end of Witcher 3.
Well, you could if you tried.
I've tried. I don't have the time to do it.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Oh, come on. But that's what I'm saying. Like, what point does it get ridiculous to where it's like, no, this isn't like, we appreciate that you're trying to give us, but eventually I need this sense of completion. And look, everyone's different. Look, personally, I feel like I need that. I'm used to running for a finish line and hitting that finish line and pumping my fist and saying, where's the next race? Like, and maybe some people are different. Maybe they're marathon runners and they can run all damn day and not care about a finish line. But I think a lot of people are like me. There's a lot of people who aren't like me, but I just think that there's a breaking point at a certain point. Like, I would not want The Witcher 4 to be like a 200-hour game. Like, there has to be a cutoff somewhere.
I would say that because, like, I wouldn't want maybe I don't want Just Cause 3 to be a 200-hour game. But The Witcher, like, those guys do it so well, and, like, I wouldn't say that for every developer in the world that I'd want a 200-hour game from them. But I will say that for CD Projekt Red. Like, I'll take a 200-hour Cyberpunk game from them.
I would not. I wouldn't even care how good a game is. I would not want it to be 200 hours.
Well, all I can say to that
is... It's just like I feel like that's hopeless. Like, I don't buy a game to finish it like a year later.
Well, all I can say is, like, I think there are people who do wish that their $60 went that far.
Yeah.
Because, times are tough.
Oh, you're right. There are people who only get a game or two a year.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's like, well, if that's too long for you, there's a lot of other games that aren't that long to play.
But they're not as good.
Well, that's the conundrum, isn't it?
Right, but like they can make a Witcher that's like 30 hours. Imagine if they cut like all those other missions and just literally took the best from that 100 hours and cut it down to like a 30-hour game. No, imagine how incredible that game would be, Matt. No?
The world and the sprawl and the length and the...
It is part of it.
It's all part of it. And I can't imagine The Witcher without that.
Yeah.
I can't. Cyberpunk, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Cyberpunk sucks. I don't know. I mean, I am not as...
I have a feeling it
I have a feeling
suck.
It will not, yes. But, I'm very attached to The Witcher. I love the world. I love the take on it. I love the kind of the Polish fairy tale sort of angle that like creeps into it, where like it's that Eastern European thing that like wow, that's weird. Yeah. I don't have any sense of I don't know what that's like to a Polish player. Like maybe they find that to be like kind of down home part of their culture kind of thing. But like to me, it's like this alien thing I've never seen before, and it's fascinating. Yeah. And it's like it surprises me and it interests me, and it's not the same old fantasy crap that we've been dealt with in games for 25 years. Right. So like I will take as much of that as you can throw at me. Cyberpunk, I don't know. Cyberpunk is a more established thing. A lot of it feels like a rehash of Neuromancer or old William Gibson or Blade Runner. So we'll see. We'll see if they can make Cyberpunk 2077 feel as fresh as The Witcher.
Yep.
and make me care.
So we've came to no consensus.
Not really.
On our deep dive. We still don't know when a game is too long.
Like, I'll agree that, like, some, like Grand Theft Auto maybe was too long or like that, but CD Projekt Red, until CD Projekt Red does something that makes me say, like, wow, you guys had nothing to put in here. Like, this whole game just sagged all through the middle. Like, until they screw up and give me that, I'm just going to say, keep going. See how far you can push it.
All right, guys, I'm interested to hear your perspectives on this as well. Also, if you have any questions for Matt and I, now is the time to ask them. By the time you type them in and it goes through the whole delay, we'll be done talking and we'll be able to answer your questions. I do have some very exciting news, and I haven't talked about it in several weeks because I was getting very frustrated with the whole thing. But I can tell you that we are finally ready to announce the new show next week. The graphics were completed yesterday.
Another announcement of an announcement.
Yeah, I have them on my hard drive. They are done. We are ready to let you guys all know about the big news, about the big show coming to Sifted. That's going to happen next week. So, after I probably should have never mentioned it, but the people who are doing the graphics for the show said they would be done in a week, and it literally took them like a month and a half. And it actually took me going to their place of business last week and being like, what is up? Like, I'm not even kidding. I drove there unannounced, didn't tell them I was coming or anything, and just knocked on the door and was like, what is going on? And surprisingly, they were done like 5 days later. So sometimes being a jerk works, folks. So big news coming next week. You guys are going to really be excited about what's happening with Sifted. We actually have a couple other shows that we're working on right now, too, with some people that you guys really like. So some big stuff coming to the site. I'm sure you guys are all seeing that Game Evals are really rolling out at a steady rate. We're doing a lot more of our Let's Plays, which we call our Hangouts. And one thing to keep in mind is anytime you get a notice saying that, oh, they're doing another Hangout, every time we do a Hangout, we're gonna do a Q&A at the beginning, and then we're gonna start cutting out that separate Q&A and putting it up as a separate segment. You guys probably saw that with the Rainbow Six Siege Hangout that we did. We cut out the Q&A session that we did at the beginning separately and published that on its own. So if you guys want to have another opportunity to ask questions or just ask us about games that we have access to that maybe you guys don't have access to yet, make sure when you get that notification in your email for a Hangout that you jump on and come join us. We always just kind of kick it for the first like 15 or 20 minutes of a Hangout. We literally just hang out waiting for people to get into the stream, and I just sit there and just take questions from you guys for the first 15 or 20 minutes, and I really enjoy it, and it seems like you guys too do as well, and the response to the first one we put up has been really positive as far as comments. So keep that in mind next time you get a notification. And actually, I think I got a notification for this that said Rainbow Six Siege Hangout. Yeah. So we got to keep remembering to...
It's hard to remember to change the Twitch title.
It really is. It's like the last thing you think of when you're trying to put together a show like this. It's like, oh yeah, I need to go to Twitch and change the title. So thanks to you guys who showed up. Let's see if we have any questions here. Let's see. With the success of... And this is from this... This is for Vidya Games. With the success of Ni no Kuni, do you think that Level 5's next RPG, Yokai Watch, will be a success? Yeah.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, I think I'll like it.
I don't know that Ni no
success
Kuni...
in the sense of, like, commercial success?
I'm assuming that's what it is. I don't think that Ni no Kuni was a huge success in the States, though. I mean, it probably made its budget back.
It was a success as far as what they would have expected for it, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, it probably hit expectations as far as sales. And it certainly was well received by critics. I think Yokai Watch is going to be big in America. I mean, it's beyond big in Japan. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that Nintendo does a great job of finding something popular in one territory and making another territory care about it. I mean, they did it with Pokemon. Pokemon was huge in Japan. They turned it into a sensation here.
And people said it couldn't be huge here.
Yep.
Like, there was a lot of skepticism about Pokemon coming here.
Yep, and look at what they've done, and it's still a beast. So, yeah, I think Nintendo is going to flex its marketing muscles and its creative muscles and make Yokai Watch a big hit here in America. I write it down. Stamp it into stone. Let's see... Why is the gaming industry trying to ruin itself? Broken games, DLC that should be in the game, microtransaction as full-price games. I just get sick of it at times. I don't think it's trying to ruin itself. No. I think the problem is that there's a lot of greed in the industry. And these publishers are trying to make every penny that they can. And look, it's not just video game publishers. It's every major corporation in America. Like, That's the way big companies work. They try to find a way to squeeze every penny out of everything that they do. And, video game publishers are big corporations. They're not like your buddy. And that's one thing that always pisses me off is when people get attached to like a video game publisher, or even in a lot of cases a video game developer, because at the end of the day, they really don't care about you. They care about your money. Why do you think they don't listen to you when you say these microtransactions are a bunch of bullcrap? Because you buy them, and they don't care about what you really think. They care about whether you're going to give them your money or not. So, and
because frankly, people think about, we pay $60 for these things. $60. Like, games have never been cheaper.
Oh, I know.
You adjust for inflation, like, the games used to be like 60, 70, 80 on cartridges back in the 16-bit era, and that, adjusted for inflation translates to like $130 now.
Yeah.
I mean games used to literally be double, twice as much as they cost now. So, like, part of what you're seeing here is these companies trying to kind of make up that missing money with microtransactions, DLC, etc. Like, they're trying to recoup these budgets that have never been as big as this before either. Which is also why you've seen kind of the B-list games sort of vanish. Things like Transformers Devastation are miracles today. Like, anything like that gets made.
Yep. Next question. Apart from games, what's your other hobbies?
I collect a lot of plastic robots. Transformers. I collect Transformers. I watch a lot of movies. I'm probably a movie fan before I'm a
yeah, you might be, yeah. You know more about movies than pretty much anyone I know.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first.
And your father kind of engendered that in you,
my dad was a movie fan to the point, like, if you said the name of a movie, he could tell you the day, date, theater he saw that movie for the first time. Like, they were major. Every movie was a major life event for him. So to me, like, movies are kind of like a big. They're the touchstone with reality for me, whereas video games are escapism.
Interesting. I don't really have any hobbies anymore.
Hobbyistsifted.net. Maybe you've heard of it.
I used to have hobbies before I launched this website.
Well, you still keep up with football.
Yeah, I mean, look, I play fantasy sports. I'm in like 5 fantasy football leagues this season, which I've learned is way too much.
Yeah, too bad we couldn't talk about the DraftKings scandal.
Yeah, it's way too much. And next year I'll never play in this many leagues again. And I did a fantasy hockey draft last night. I only do one of those. I still DJ. I'm still really into music and going out and seeing bands and going to music festivals and stuff like that. But I feel like I'm getting to the age now where I kind of stick out like a sore thumb when I go to those things.
Creepy old guy at the DJ festival.
Yeah, so I don't want to get to that place where I'm like the weird guy at those. So I feel like I'm not at the place where I'm going to start cutting myself off from going to stuff like that. But in all honesty, like, I play hockey like on the weekends. At least I did until I tore my knee up, and my knee's all messed up right now. So in all honesty, I really have no hobbies right now, Matt. None. My whole life is this website. Like, I sleep 4 hours a night. And I get like 6 hours on Friday night, but then I work all day Saturday. I have like kind of put my foot in the sand, and I'm like not working Sundays, so I can watch a little bit of football on Sundays. But otherwise, man, what you see is what you get. I am 1,000% committed to this site. And I think if you start your own company, you kind of have to be, or it's going to fail. So it's been way harder than I ever thought. I'll say that much, starting my own company. But it has been very rewarding, especially to see Sifted turn into what I hoped it would turn into, which is a place for adults to really enjoy games together and have a sophisticated conversation and engaging conversation. So with all the hard work, it's good to see everything kind of paying off and this pipe dream that I had actually kind of coming to fruition. So let's find one more question. Oh man, there's tons. I'm sorry, guys. I can't get to all these. I want to pick a good one, though. Someone just wrote, "Thanks, Calvin Johnson." You know what? I lost a game on that fumble with the goal line. I lost one of my fantasy games because of that. Let's see. One more. Microtransactions in Destiny, no. Actor Strike, no. Okay, here we go. From Boulevard 33. Question, what will be the first game whose sales/reception will suffer from open world fatigue? That's a really good question.
Open world fatigue. Like, I wonder if, like...
I think it's a game that we talked about on the show today. Far Cry Primal.
Far Cry?
That is not solely because of open world fatigue, but it's the fact that we will have had, like, 5 or 6 open world games right in succession, and then that comes out after the holidays. And it's like coming out in February, which is a period where people don't traditionally buy a lot of games, although that is kind of changing.
It could. I think Primal will be like an after the sales kind of thing, though, for that. In terms of something that would be hurt by it, something where people would say, like, hey, I don't want to do that again, I think Watch Dogs 2 might be your breaking point on that. I think Watch Dogs 2 might be like, people who played the first one would maybe, even if they liked it, would be like, I don't think I want to really go through all that again.
Or maybe you could say that we've already seen it with Assassin's Creed. Actually, maybe the game is Assassin's Creed Syndicate.
Maybe Syndicate. It could be.
I think that might be it, actually. We'll see. I mean, it's tracking way lower than most Assassin's Creed games.
It is.
And I mean, part of it might be how buggy Unity was at first.
I don't know how much of that is open world fatigue, how much of it is just like there's been one of these games every year or more than one every year for 8 years now.
Yeah.
So
maybe we can just agree that it's going to be a Ubisoft game.
Yeah, Ubisoft seems to be the big assumption here.
Yeah, because at first I picked Far Cry,
all the time.
Then you picked Watch Dogs, and then we went back to Syndicate. Sorry, Ubisoft, we do love you, and we love most of your games, but it just kind of worked out.
I'll say Just Cause 3, just to get out of the Ubisoft.
There you go. We'll beat up on Warner Brothers a little bit. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thanks to everybody for watching this show. We're kind of back on our normal day again. We went full circle, and we're back to Thursday.
Back around the whole week. Back on to Thursday.
But thank you for watching. Thanks for all the great questions. Like, I really wish we could have answered a lot more. I see that more are still coming in here. They keep coming, and they're all really good ones. So I guess what I would say is if you guys have questions that you want to have answered, like jump in on one of our Hangouts. Maybe we'll be doing one on Saturday. Maybe I'll come in here to the studio and hang out with you guys and play a game. Just want to make sure I have something really good and fun.
You should start trying to finish The Witcher.
Yeah, I don't think people want to see that, though. That's like yesterday's news. We did just get Yoshi's Woolly World in today and a couple other things. So anyway, just keep an eye on our social media, on our Twitter feed or our Facebook page, and I'll let you guys know. But there's a pretty high probability I'll be coming in here on Saturday into the studio to live stream with and for you guys. So that's it for GameFace 26. We'll see you here next week. GameFace is up and out.